Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Municipality of Monroeville Citizen Night and Council Work Session. Today is Thursday, August 8th, 2013, approximately 7 p.m. If we'd all kindly rise for the Lord's Prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You want to move over here? You all right?
Everybody walks in.
You ever see a shit stain here and that door crack open a little bit? Oh no.
I'm right on doctor.
We'll shoot everybody. It scares me if I miss and hit it one year. Little baby.
What's your problem?
I can't find my glass.
You're on your face.
See that?
Anybody else want to sign in before I take the list out?
Wait a minute, entry.
Once again, anybody else like to sign in?
Are you over?
No, you, well, you signed in, I can call you out.
That's true. That's what they're here
I don't know what it is.
Apologize about the delay. I just had to grab our list. We do have quite a few folks that want to address council, so we'll just start off the list. And Mr. Lippincott, if you would, please come on up and just state your name for the record, and only that you live in Monroeville. You do not have
Well,
to use your address.
I have to give you more information than that. My name is Ezra Lippincott, and I live on McClure Road in Monroeville. And I have to tell you that because that's the main reason I'm here.
It's your time.
First, I'd like to give people a little bit of information. The other day, a week ago, two gentlemen from Gibson Thomas Engineering showed up at my door unannounced, out of the blue, and they told me that the Municipal Authority of Westmoreland County wants to put their water line right down on the street using my property. I talked to various people in Monroeville here, and no one knew what the route was. Now, what they intend to do is to connect Plum, Monroeville, and their system, and this connection is going to occur somewhere near the intersection of Old Frankstown Road and Sycamore Hill Road, which is in the corner of Monroeville and Plum.
May I interrupt 1 minute, Mr. Lippincott? Mrs. Lippincott, I see you signed in. You wanted to come on up as well at this
Well,
time?
I might wait and summarize.
Oh, okay, very good. Okay, I just noticed.
She'll convey the things that I forget.
I understand that.
Anyway, their route for this water line, these engineers, Gibson Thomas Engineering Company, who's located in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, the route that is their first choice, I don't know if there's any alternates left. They have looked at alternates, but I don't know if there are any others under consideration, is to go along the east side of McClure Road, from Old Frankstown Road to Route 22, and then somewhere across Route 22 and into the Murray's View Shopping Center, and somewhere they connect up with their system. And this is going to provide Monroeville and Plum water, which this was announced some, I don't know, months or a year ago. That's where our
It's
water
been a
is
while,
coming.
yes.
And so obviously they need to put some connection in, and this is going to be like a 24-inch pipe means that they're going to have to dig a big trench. And in talking to these engineers, they say that it's too expensive for them to put it down the middle of the street unless they're forced to, so they're going to go through the residential yards. And my yard is a little bit different than most yards in that it's all woods, except for where my driveway is. And a lot of these trees on my property are within the easement they're asking for, which averages something like 13 feet from the edge of the road, plus an additional 10-foot temporary easement, which will be unusable by them because that's where they want to pile dirt that they dig up out of their trench. And so going by my property, they're going to have to pile that in the road anyway. In exchange for my granting them an easement to put this pipe along McClure Road through my property, they're going to pay me, offer me the sum of $1, which just makes it a legal agreement. And they're offering, they promised at the end of the project to restore as nearly as may be practical to the way my property was. Now, I went and counted some trees along just I have quite a bit of frontage along McClure Road, just the part sort of from the next house across in an equal distance behind my house, which is about half my frontage maybe. And there are 12 trees that are more than 6 inches in diameter that are located within this easement. And 2 of these trees, which I'm most concerned about, are 2 large oak trees. One is about 22 inches in diameter, and the other one is about 32 inches in diameter. The first one is within 5 feet of the edge of the road, and the second one was within 8 feet of the edge of the road. Of course, these trees were not planted close to the road. The road came through, the trees were already there. They're probably both over 100 years old. So I'm concerned that putting this pipe in might kill those trees and other ones. I say there's about 12 that are large, plus dozens more small trees within this area. So, in the past, back when Sean Logan was mayor, we had a big discussion about cutting trees along McClure Road, and a lumber company had bought lumber from that area below McClure Road, and their permit was denied because that's such a landslide area, and because the citizens in my neighborhood all appreciate having this wooded area. So even though, you're just perhaps losing a strip of trees, I think that should be a concern. And I think that before such a project would be approved, there should be some kind of impact statement prepared that would tell us, what the impact is in terms of vegetation that will be lost. And also, when they dig this trench, I think it's possible that they could change the drainage patterns on the hill, which affect McClure Road. McClure Road is a real problem road as far as the fact that it's water drains under it, and we have a problem with potholes and the downhill edge of the road subsidence, and they had to continually repair that. So these are my concerns, not just for my property, but just for the possible damage to the road in general. And I've talked to various people about these things. I talked to John Caper at the Monroeville Municipal Authority, he's the manager there, and he referred me to Tom Sarasso, who's the assistant manager of the Municipal Authority of Westmoreland County. I talked to him. I said, aren't you concerned about building this pipe through a landslide area? And he says, well, we have ways of dealing with that. So perhaps, the engineering can be done well enough to do that. I also talked to Paul Hugas over here about, when he will review this project, and he has to grant a permit for it. And apparently that comes later after they apply for a permit. So right now, these people are coming and asking for my permission to put it through my property without, having done their final engineering. They didn't know where my utilities are. I pointed out that both my water meter and my gas meter are within this easement. The water line and the sewer line, which cross where they're going, I think those are about 4 feet deep, and they want to put this pipe 4 feet deep. I guess they have ways of doing that. I don't have any guarantee that they're not going to interrupt my electricity and my gas lines too. But they told me, well, when the time comes, we call up the one call and they come out and tell us where the utilities are. Well, I would think you'd want to know that before you decide exactly how to do this project. So anyway, that's kind of where we stand. And, I think this, this easement that they asked me to sign, as I say, it promises to restore my property, and I got an oral commitment from them that, like 2 years, within 2 years, they will repair any damage. I don't think that's necessarily enough time. If trees die, they may not die in 2 years, or you might have subsidence that comes after 2 years. Basically, what I would ask them for in order to sign this agreement is that I be indemnified against losses in value to my property, and that if any dispute comes up, they have to prove that their trench didn't cause that tree to die. I don't have to prove that their trench, I think the burden of proof should be on them and not on me.
Did you discuss that with them, Mr. Lippincott?
Not yet.
Okay. Those are good points you're bringing up.
But I think, and that's something I think perhaps, I don't know the proper procedures for this, but maybe our council here could require as a condition of the permit that all the homeowners be indemnified that way, that the damage that they do be repaired as much as practicable, but if it's not practical to repair it, restore things back the way they were, that decreases in property value would be reimbursed.
Hang on one second. Paul, are they going to do an impact study on this project?
Well, I had no idea about the project until I spoke to Mr. Lippincott this week.
Okay.
So it was news to me, too.
Well, he brought it to my attention as well.
Yes.
Okay.
As he spoke, we have an ordinance that covers utility work in the right-of-ways of municipal roads. Before they would do anything, they would have to get a permit from us, as he stated. Obviously, it's a pretty large project. It is a road that has some landslide-prone problems. We've had problems there before. It continues to have problems. I have not spoken with the authority yet about the project. I intend to because of those issues, but as of yet, I have not.
Okay. One of the questions that Mr. Lippincott had was in regards to indemnify all the residents in that area. Is that something that we can ask? I mean, I'm not even sure if that's appropriate. I know you're not an attorney, but, maybe
Might
that's
ask
Mr. White's question. I
Ask
don't
the
know.
gentleman next to you. But, I mean, I can tell you that, the ordinance covers how the operation is to occur within the municipal right-of-way. Now, I understand that they're asking for some additional right-of-way from Mr. Lippincott for this project. But again, I don't know all the details. I was actually kind of surprised about it. As a matter of fact, correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't even know they were in Monroeville. They thought they were in Murraysville or
Yeah,
And you're saying it was about 23 feet total on your property, am I
Yeah, well,
correct? They're going to,
they're part of, the 10 feet of it is a temporary easement, which in my case, I don't see any way they could use, but my neighbors who have lawns, they would presumably pile dirt on the lawns on that additional 10 feet, and then after they're done, they would restore it, and there would be no longer an easement there.
I mean, I would
Yeah,
tell, go ahead, Steve.
As they put the pipe in, they'll backfill that. But I feel confident that if you contact the water authority, I'm the liaison for the water authority, that they'll work with you in any way.
You're a liaison for the Monroeville Water Authority.
Water
but
Authority, which this is
this
is a bit of a joint effort.
Yeah, but, well, John Caper said it was Westmoreland County's
That may be
authority.
their engineering firm.
It's their problem. They're selling us water. We're their customer. And so it's their problem to hook it up.
Yeah.
That's what he told me.
Mr. Duncan, was it discussed at all at the water authority meetings? Like
This particular piece of property was not, but there was discussion on,
where the lines are going to run?
where the lines were going to run. It was a rough draft that we all, took a look at. But as far as, I feel confident that they would work with you individually, as landowners. And on a water line, it's not like a sewer line that has to have fall. They could raise a little. If you're worried about your utilities, they can go lower. They can actually turn. I'm sure if it's a tree that's 200-year-old tree, that possibly they could work around that.
Yeah, they could put it in the street.
Possibly-
I had a question about that
Possibly
also.
they could bring it up.
And that borders Plum. That's part of the third ward that does border Plum. And Mr., boy, this is real loud. John Caper came in front of council and to give us the good news on how we can save so many cents per 100 gallons on, instead of continuing the contract in 2014, going with the Westmoreland, which uses Beaver Run. And
Hey, Joe, you know what? You might want to turn some of the microphones down up here on console.
I just wondered how, I want to understand how that's going to be running. Will it be running parallel to the street, and then your connecting neighbors will be so many feet back, having that parallel run of the line just 23 feet on your property, but a continuing of the line of what they're laying? Is that the way that water line is supposed to lay, parallel to the way the road runs?
I believe that's the case. I only have the drawing for my property, but
Okay.
I believe that
Would it be
that's what-
possible to get a copy of what you have?
Yeah, in fact, I gave a copy to Ms. McKinney,
Okay.
and she can
All right.
get one for you. Maybe you could look at hers.
We can also ask that they come to a meeting and maybe better explain the, the process.
The Water
and
Authority
exact-
meeting, they meet the
Yeah.
fourth Monday?
I think so,
Yes.
because, although I talked to Tom Sarasso at Westmoreland County Municipal Authority, the people actually coming around the neighborhood are the engineers who are designing this, and not the direct representatives of or direct employees of the municipal authority.
Steve, since you're the liaison, can you maybe contact Caper and see if they can do that?
Most definitely. I know that they have a meeting, I believe it's on the 26th this month. It's a Monday.
Yes, it is.
A municipal authority meeting,
Yes.
which is right over off of Spillman Lane, James and Spillman. You may want to attend that, and we could answer a lot of the questions there, or they can, the board can answer, because we're really not associated
Yeah, I
to the
understand,
authority.
but the,
It'd be a good forum for you to come and present your,
Good, Bruce.
Well, really, the forum that has jurisdiction over this is not this body, nor Monroeville Municipal Authorities. It really is Westmoreland County's authority. That's really the authority meeting you should be going to and laying out your case. And I'd take some pictures with them, of the trees, and show some of those guys that are on the board and say, hey, what can you do for me? So you know,
yeah.
authorities like Westmoreland and Plum has laid miles and miles of water and sewer line in the last couple of years. Monroeville hasn't done much of that. Rather, the developer does it. I would suggest to you that they're very familiar, and they work with residents like you all the time concerning situations like you're raising. And while you worked with the engineers first, as I said to you before the meeting, the next step will be if you don't sign and you say no, then you're going to start to hear from probably some of the representatives of Westmoreland, i.e. their attorneys. And you're going to tell them the same story you told the engineer. And then he's going to report that back to the board, and they're going to send out a group to try to work with you. You can head off some of that by going directly to the meeting and saying, look at these trees, look at the pictures, what can you do for me? That's what I would do.
Okay, well, like I said, I'm not trying to torpedo this project, and if it has to go through my property, so be it. The only thing I'm looking at is a fair treatment. That's
And
all I
I think
want.
they're in the business of doing that.
Yeah. And, the inconvenience that's going to accrue to me, when they tear up my driveway and stuff like that, I'm willing to put up with that, and that's only a temporary thing. But what I'm looking at is to avoid, permanent things that are gonna, if I have to pay to cut down a tree later, I had a tree uphill from my house cut down, it cost me $800.
I've done the same thing, I understand.
There's one other thing I want to bring up on this, and that is, in thinking about this, and I talked to Mr. Hugas, said that money to reconstruct McClure Road and fix the problem with the drainage and the potholes and things is in the capital improvement budget that I understand is going to be discussed starting around October. And to me, a win-win situation would be if they put this line down the road, which would do a, for them, if they had to repair the road, it would be a big cost. But if we can coordinate their project with our project to fix the road and share the cost of fixing the road, it might be a win-win situation for everybody. So I think that's something for council to think about, because you have to approve the capital improvement budget. And maybe we could negotiate with the Municipal Authority of Westmoreland County to accomplish that end. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up now to get people thinking about it. Maybe Mr. Hugas can talk to them about that, and we can come up with, maybe that would be the lowest cost solution to this whole problem, where they're not damaging the residents' property and the road gets fixed. Now, the road, my part of the road doesn't carry as much traffic as the part between Route 22 and Mountain View Drive, which is a very heavily used road, and it's they just recently had to repair a part of the road where the downhill part of the road was subsiding. And parts of that road, the hillside is very steep on both sides of the road. And so I think that, if they are going to avoid tearing up that road and put a trench in that hillside, I think they're going to have major problems. Our part of the road, you probably can get away with digging the trench, and I don't know how much that'll affect the road. Part down towards the intersection with Mountain View is a little steeper than it is right at my house. So I'm not asking for the moon here and trying to hold up this project, but I just think we ought to look at it from the point of view of what really is the best solution, and not just the best solution from the standpoint of the engineers who work for the Municipal Authority of Westmoreland County.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Mrs. Lippincott, would you like to fill anything else in?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm having some technical difficulties.
You want to take a short
If we
break?
could take a short break, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a few minutes break to let Sharon fix her show. So. We're back in session, and this is still our citizens' night proportion of the meeting. And again, Mrs. Lippincott, I'm going to ask you if there's anything else you'd like to add to your husband's statements. Please state your name for the record.
Karen Lippincott, and I think he pretty much covered it all. I want to emphasize that we are not in any way trying to sabotage the project, but we're really hoping that for a change, we can do things ahead of time, proactively. So we're doing things right the first time instead of throwing more $500,000s of dollars later trying to fix it. But also, there are a couple of other McClure residents here who have some other concerns, so.
Well, whoever
Yeah.
signed in, I'll get to them, and then after
Okay.
I go through the sign-in list, I'll still open it up for anybody that would like to address council, so. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Lippincott. Marilyn Carroll, if you would, please. State your name for the record.
Marilyn Carroll, Northern Pike, Holt Lane, Monroeville. I am after a whole different thing. There's other issues going on in my neighborhood, but Steve Duncan's taking care of them. I'm after this light at CVS. Years ago, we were told it just wasn't operating right. Right, Paul? It's slow. That light is now a 4-minute light. I live on Old Northern Pike. Thompson Run is now closed, which we're minus 6,000 cars, thank goodness. But for us to come up Northern Pike, I get stopped at Fox Hill Apartments or the Duquesne Light Generators. We inch our way to Monroeville Medical Building, which now they're adding on. If we get to the stop sign, sometimes you can cut through the medical building, but now they're going to build on it and we can't. You get to the stop sign and you make a left. You've got 5-6 minutes tied up before you can even get there. Coming from Monroeville Road, if we come shoot across here, you're lined up on this side of the bridge. To even get down to the stop sign, you can't make the left to get onto Northern Pike because you can't see what's coming in off the highway at the angle. Now, Value City has put a sign up, private lane, whatnot, but everybody ignores it. You've got to cut through. We can come out at the light at Value City, come up past this light at CVS twice before it turns. When the light at Sheets turns red, we know we're going to get a green, but we're waiting at this thing over 4 minutes. This light was obsolete a while ago. Now you've added a state store, 2 restaurants, and a hotel coming out of the light at CVS, and the people at Northern Pike can't even get to the stop sign to get to the light. It's a mess.
Paul, I assume you know about this issue.
I do. I hear from my mother daily.
Thank you. And we're going to move you back to
She
the
lives on
neighborhood.
Northern Pike. I'm at her house daily.
We're going to bring you back so you can deal with
Paul,
it.
are they camera controlled?
They are camera controlled.
Yeah, till
You know,
6:30 in the morning. You can get out like that, and then it stops.
It's a coordinated system. 22 gets the majority of the time because you try to get the traffic on 22 moving in platoons. It's a side street.
But is 4 minutes appropriate, though?
It's not quite 4 minutes. I've timed it.
I did today, too. 4 minutes.
I've timed it. It's not 4 minutes.
Well, let me put it this way.
close.
Should it be looked at again?
Well, here's the problem. The Roth Carpet Building was turned into the Liquor Control Board's. Now there's 5 guys, so that added additional traffic. We changed the timings of the signals, of that signal, to try to help it, and it did. Then with the closure of Thompson Run Road, it changed it, the traffic pattern changed a little bit more. We are looking at some different options. I don't have total control of it because PennDOT has jurisdiction over traffic signals. So I'm working with them and trying to come up with some solutions to that. The problem is the distance from the traffic signal to the entrance of the former Roth Carpet is a very short distance. People pull out, they block both lanes of traffic. You can't move. because of that reason. People block the traffic. So it's, the geometry and the short distance to the signal is a problem.
Well, is there somewhat of a solution for the residents?
We have not had a solution yet, but it's,
You're looking at least.
we're trying to come up with one.
Did
There's
not-
no short answer to it.
I understand.
Did not Sadler's and Tusing's years back give a right-of-way to go into the back of where Value City is now? That is posted private now. We all ignore it, but it's the only way we can get out.
You mean to the backside of the shopping center? That's
That is-
private property.
I thought they gave a right-of-way many years ago.
That's private property. They have the right to post that.
That's the only way, I mean, we're down through it. And now the medical building, they're going to begin to add on to it. And it's full right now.
Well, they have approved to, but I don't think they're going to do
And
it.
then Fox Hill comes out, and you've got Eagle Ridge. We're stranded. We used to be able to go down Thompson Run and come out on the highway and come all the way up. But now, I mean, we're stuck.
I'm aware of the problem. We're trying to work on it.
I'll leave it to your mother.
Yep.
We need help.
So quit cooking for me.
John Yakem, if you would, please. Thank you, Paul, for at least looking at it anyway.
No problem.
If you'll kindly state your name and that you live in Monroeville.
Good evening. My name is John Yakem, and I'm a resident of Monroeville. Mr. Mayor, members of council, Manager McKinney, Solicitor Dice, good evening to all of you. Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to address you in council this evening. Over the past 9 or 10 months, our community has been dragged through the mud because of an alleged HIPAA breach. And I have truly been troubled by some of the responses of council and you, Mr. Mayor. While HHS will ultimately decide if our dispatch center is or is not a covered entity, it seems to me that many people have fixated on whether or not there is a HIPAA violation, as if an HHS verdict of a non-violation would be a redemption. I think this is ludicrous. While it is yet to be determined if there is or is not a HIPAA violation, by piecing together the various newspaper reports and listening to members of council at meetings, it has become obvious to many that people who were not authorized to view sensitive material have. And it also has been apparent that this was going on for a very long time. In other words, our privacy was violated, and it went on for a very long time. One of the more troubling portions of this entire soap opera has been the response of you, Mr. Mayor, and the minority of council. Mr. Mayor, Councilman Duncan has repeated time and time again that he was offended by the alleged language of Mrs. Drumhiller in an executive session. What no one has ever mentioned is what was it that made Mrs. Drumhiller go off in such a manner. I will tell you my opinion. It is that she was angered by the information that was leaking out of our very own system. This executive session was the first time all of council and the mayor were made completely aware of what was being leaked by our system. Quite frankly, I am not surprised by her anger. Mr. Mayor, what surprises me is that Councilman Duncan wasn't equally angered. It surprises me that all 8 of you were not screaming after realizing the extent of what our system was leaking. Mr. Mayor, Councilman Johns made repeated statements that this investigation is a joke. Councilman Johns was the first councilman that walked out of the executive session when Chief Pasquarella was presenting to council, so he never even saw the complete presentation. He also stated at the last workshop that he did not read the entire report. The report revealed several members of our local fire department were viewing a rape report of a young woman. The rumor is that this woman is actually a juvenile, a girl. So several curious young firefighters, according to the news report, were viewing the rape report of a girl. I am troubled by this, Mr. Mayor. I am also troubled that Councilman Johns would consider this investigation a joke. Besides saying this publicly, he said it on a radio show, which could jeopardize the municipality's legal position. He was even given the opportunity on the radio to clarify his statements, which he did not. How can anyone possibly say this is okay? How can anyone say this is a joke? He didn't even stay long enough in the executive session to find out how much of a joke this leak was, or was not. Nor did he read the entire report before he declared to the world that the report was a joke. This was the only news report that was mentioned in the news. It is reasonable to believe that other reports were viewed as well. How much of this information from these police reports was shared with others? Was any of this information used to blackmail a witness or a suspect? Was this information used to intimidate political opponents? Police records often include addresses, dates of birth, driver's license numbers, and social security numbers. How many of our citizens have been opened up to identity theft because they trusted that the police department would protect their information? I do not think investigating any of this is a joke, Mr. Mayor. Now, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Grieshock's response has also been a bit troubling. He is a healthcare provider himself. He certainly should understand that HIPAA is only one of many privacy rules and regulations that the public expects to be followed. His comments have indicated that he is more concerned with the cost of the investigation than he is with the results. Mr. Mayor, the results of the investigation are frightening. Our dispatch center, fire department, EMS service, and police departments are organizations that we must be able to trust to serve and protect us. But each of these organizations has played a potential role in violating us. That little girl mentioned in the news report was violated, and any of us that used any of the municipal services is also a victim. Our faith and trust in these organizations has been rattled. And, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Grieshock is worried about the cost of the investigation. Mr. Mayor, Councilman Grieshock has repeatedly suggested that this investigation could have been handled internally. First of all, Mr. Mayor, that is what the majority of council was trying to get our previous manager to do. His inaction led to council pressuring him to do his job, which led to his resignation. Secondly, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Dice initially told the press that there was no HIPAA violation. I would speculate that he was led to believe that there was no violation by other municipal officials. When it became apparent that this was a bigger deal than he was led to believe, I think Mr. Dice was wise to suggest that outside counsel be utilized. Mr. Mayor, would you please tell Councilman Grieshock that our own solicitor has stated publicly on multiple occasions that he recommended outside counsel. Dickey, McCamey, and Chilcott, and John Daly are all extremely reputable professionals. While the infighting in our community makes great political theater, serious people know this report was professionally done by serious professionals. Trying to derail these professionals only hurts our community. Finally, Mr. Mayor, I am disappointed how you have used the silence of your gavel to let residents attack members of council, the manager, and the chief of police for taking this investigation seriously. You used the silence of your gavel to let residents and political cronies attack other residents. I have been told that you have received a letter from an elderly resident who was afraid to attend council meetings because of the way you let the meetings occur. How dare you, sir, run a meeting where a resident is fearful to attend? I find it ironic that a story regarding the ACLU was on the front page of the Times-Express the day the leak of the special report hit the paper. The ACLU appeared not to be too concerned about the civil liberties of one of our community being partially muzzled when he was out of order at a council meeting. However, I wonder if the ACLU will be concerned about the civil liberties of the young rape victim or any of the thousands of residents whose privacy was violated by their own government. Mr. Mayor, you, Councilman Grieshock, Councilman Johns, and Councilman Duncan are all fathers of daughters, as am I. I am appalled that the four of you are concerned about the process, concerned about the cost, and concerned about those that let this leak continue, and you seem less concerned about the grave violation of that young girl and anyone else that was needed in our public safety department. Providing for the safety of the citizens should be the main priority of any government, and it appears ours has failed badly for a long time. It was not until a majority of council appointed a new manager, Ms. McKinney, and she appointed a new chief of police, Chief Pasquarella, that the serious leak was arrested. Mr. Mayor, you and Councilman Grieshock and Councilman Johns and Councilman Duncan have continued to find ways to protect your special interests rather than your sworn duties to protect the residents. Again, Mr. Mayor, the role of government is to protect its citizens. The majority of council, Chief Pasquarella, and Manager McKinney have done that. You and your minority appear to have chosen a different path. Thank you for letting me address council this evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll just say this very briefly. As you all know, we were advised not to address the issues. So I will not respond to many of the misconceptions that you just heard. When this is all said and done, I assure you, it will be a complete eye-opening issue for all of us. There's a lot of information that I sit on, as well as every member up here, that we cannot discuss. It will be discussed at the appropriate time. And one thing that I do agree, HHS has to complete the investigation. And when that is done, it is then is when all the information will come out.
And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make one more comment.
Sure.
One thing that Mr. Yakem did say, and as the mayor just mentioned, we do have to, under the advice of the attorneys, Dickie McCamey, who I certainly had questions of how we hired them in the first place. We were told that they were Googled. Turns out that if you Google HIPAA attorneys, they do not show up. So there was questions on where they came from and how they were hired and who they knew. There certainly are questions about where the investigators come from as well, who he knows and who he doesn't know. But one of the main things I would like to say that Mr. Yakem was correct in saying is that March 7th executive session, and I hate to keep bringing up Mrs. Drumhiller at that meeting, but it was that meeting. That was the first time that council heard about the HIPAA complaint, heard the whole story. That was a March 7th executive session. The original complaint was back in August the previous year. March 7th, 2013 is when we first heard about it, and that was even after a February executive session when Chief Pasquarella was chief at that point, and there was no mention of this. I've certainly had some issues with the way that process was handled and the timing of it. Cost certainly is one of the issues as well. And like the mayor, I will reserve the rest of my comments regarding all of this till Health and Human Services finishes their investigation of this matter. And while we're on the subject, do we know where we are at with Dickie McCamey's latest bill or latest contact with Health and Human Services? Have they submitted the documents to Health and Human Services yet?
Yes, everything's been submitted. I talked with Harlan Stone on Tuesday, and they have 2 calls into HHS, and there's been no response and no decision made by them.
Okay, and previously via email and publicly, I asked that council would be kept abreast of any kind of contact with Dickie McCamey. So I would remind you again, please, in the future, let us know of everything that you hear from Dickie McCamey. You know, they are our attorneys as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think council needs to know what is going on, the status of this investigation,
I think I just provided that for you.
after me asking at a council work session.
Well, I was planning on doing that this evening, Dr. Grieshock.
Okay, well, you did talk to them on Tuesday, which was 2 days ago.
In lieu of responding to you this evening and giving you a public update.
Okay. Maybe we should outline some time frames. If perhaps we could, if council could know about any kind of contact from Dickie McCamey within maybe a 12-hour period. How about that? Or one full business day, something along those lines.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, back to our Citizens Night proportion, and we'll go to Ralph Greco, if you would, please. Ralph, state your name for the record.
Ralph Greco, Monroeville resident. I have a question for you. It may be way too early, but we've been hearing these commercials on TV about UPMC and that they're tax exempt. I just wonder how they would be allowed to be tax exempt if they're going to refuse treatment to certain patients.
You bring a very good point up, Ralph, and the bottom line is that is a Harrisburg issue. They obviously met the standard to become tax exempt. As they say in our business, it's above my pay grade. That is something that you might want to talk to Representative Markozik or Senator Brewster about. I'm not sure, not too many's going to disagree with you on that, but again, there's zero. I don't want to put words in anybody on council's mouth, but there's absolutely nothing we can do about that. That is law from the state, if you will.
So council has nothing to do with it?
Zero.
Okay. Council has something to do with the loans they co-signed for, right?
Well, no, just so you're familiar with that. What they are, they're cheaper, they're bonds that they get at a better rate. But the way the law's set up, they have to run it through an authority, a government authority, if you will. They chose us twice. With that last one was a $100 million bond. We'll basically get, I believe, I don't want to misquote, 50 to 60,000 initially and 25,000 a year for every year that bond's alive and well. That's just free money. And if you go back to the first one, I believe it's 105,000 a year for the life of that bond. And I think most of them are about 20 years. So it's a very good thing. It certainly helps us with revenue, if you will. So not just UPMC, I would hope that our, authority would take anybody, any nonprofit it has to be. Because that's just a benefit to us as a resident.
Okay. It just boggles my mind that a facility would be able to turn patients away.
Well, as you know, Ralph, they've been boxing each other. Let's be honest, Highmark and UPMC have been at each other. And you want me to give you my opinion at the end of the day, I think it's gonna all work out for everybody. What are they gonna say no? I mean, we're human beings, we're patients, and that's what they do. So right now, it's like the two biggest kids on the block fighting, and one wants to be the biggest kid, if that makes any sense, Okay. But I think at the end, it'll all work out.
I hope so.
Me too. Thanks, Ralph. Anne Marie, I want to say Morganti, is that correct? Just please state your name and that you live in Monroeville.
All right, my name's Anne Marie Morganti, and I live in Monroeville. I'm a Ward 2 representative of the Monroeville Public Library Board, and I wanted to invite all of you to the second annual Book Blast 5K Run Walk. It's this Sunday, September 15th at 9 a.m. Registration begins at 7:30 a.m. Again, we'll have prizes for place winners as well as raffle prizes and door prizes. Information and registration forms can be found on the library website. Also, another way to support the library, we've partnered with Max and Irma's for one of their fundraisers, where that 20% of their sales goes to a particular organization. So on Monday, August 26th, if you go there with one of these little tickets, 20% of your bill will support the Monroeville Public Library Book Blast. And you can get these tickets as well as the race forms at the library. And I also saw that there were forms out in the lobby as well. So you can grab those on your way out if any of you want to go. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would we also have that on the library's website, in case anybody wanted to print them out?
Yes, it's there.
All right.
Larry McKinney, if you would, please. Larry, just state your name and Monroeville resident.
My name is Larry McKinney. I live at 126 for Linden Drive here in Monroeville. I'm here tonight to give you some background information on a proposal that's going to come before you at next week's meeting from your Public Works Department concerning the repair of the storm sewer along the front of my property. What happened was last March, literally overnight, I woke up and looked down towards my mailbox, and there was a very large sinkhole that occurred overnight right at the end of my driveway in front of the mailbox, between the mailbox and the road. Sinkhole was approximately 4 by 3, roughly 3 feet deep, with a void underneath the corner of my concrete driveway there. My water shut off. The water authority is right there.
So my first assumption was that a water line had broken. So I called the water authority, and I will say they responded immediately with a crew of guys that come out, and they in turn called for the camera truck to come out. They evaluated the situation, and they felt it was a public works situation, that it wasn't the water line, it was in fact a storm sewer. So they called Public Works. Public Works, they too responded immediately with a crew of guys. They came down, the guys went down through the manhole covers, which are on my property there, and they evaluated the situation, and they informed me that the entire bottom of the storm sewer had deteriorated, and consequently, as water flows down Verlinden Drive from up the hill, it reaches that point in front of my property, and then it's dispersed into the soil, causing all the erosion under my driveway and the property there. They indicated that it was clearly a problem that had to be repaired, and that they in fact would get to it when the weather broke. There was actually snow on the ground at this point in time. So the guys were very nice. They got a load of gravel. They backfilled under the corner of the driveway as best they could, and they filled the hole with gravel and replaced my topsoil over top of it there. Well, we had some communications back and forth with Public Works between March and July, and lo and behold, beginning of July, another sinkhole occurred on my property overnight. This time a little larger, and the void under my driveway was even bigger. By this time, my driveway has started to slope somewhat towards that section of the lawn. With that particular cave-in, 2 sections of the curb also caved in, as well as my mailbox post fell forward. So the hole was clearly bigger. Again, I called Public Works, and I will say they responded immediately. They came down, the crew guys, they reiterated that this is clearly a problem that has to be fixed. The guys got a couple of loads of gravel, pushed it in under the driveway as best they could, backfilled it to secure it, filled the hole with gravel. They redid my mailbox post there, and they actually patched the 2 sections of the curb that are literally caved into the ground. Mr. Adams, the head of Public Works, then came down to my place, and he informed me that this was going to go on for bid, the repair of this storm sewer, and it would be coming before council in August. Well, my understanding is that, well, I have 2 concerns. Obviously, the first and foremost is to get that storm sewer fixed to stop the ongoing erosion in front of my property. My understanding in terms of how that's going to be repaired is that rather than excavating the entire road there in front of my property, is to insert a sleeve at the catch basin up above my property and run that sleeve through the old pipe, and that sleeve then becomes the new pipe, and run it down to the catch basin below my property, and like I said, that becomes the new pipe. That's great. That takes care of the storm sewer problem. I am concerned, though, about a safety issue. I don't know what kind of existing erosion has occurred, number one, under the base of my driveway, because that bottom concrete pad is sloping, so I will have to worry going forward as we drive in and out of that driveway numerous times a day, whether or not a car is going to sink into the ground there and somebody get injured. I'm also concerned about that particular location with the edge of the street there. The mailman stops his truck there every single day and deposits mail in my mailbox, right where the curb gave way. In addition, that's the walkway. The white line is painted there for pedestrians, and during the school year, all of the parents in the neighborhood walk their kids to the elementary bus stop right there. So I'm asking that some solution, something be done in terms of evaluating what sort of erosion exists under that particular area of the street and my driveway. I don't know if that means digging a hole in the road right there and then backfilling under the driveway and looking at what needs to be done to the road, or removing that bottom pad in my driveway and replacing it and backfilling under the road. Either way, I think it has to be addressed. So,
If I could answer, possibly that would be this solution if that pad has shifted or will shift over time, that they would replace that lower pad and then do a good compaction of the material that's missing under there now. We also have ways of core boring, Paul. We could possibly, they drill a small hole to see if there's any any void there. And then we do have hand cameras that they could send down.
I see.
But to put you at ease, I'm sure you can talk to the manager towards that, but if that slab would give way, it would be our responsibility to make it right.
Okay, okay. As I say, it has been sloping over the course of the last 6 months towards that hole, and the fill that they put in at the beginning of July is already starting to,
Well,
you can see where the hole's sinking.
You know,
Right.
this heavy rain.
With all this rain, sure,
It'll
it's
wash the
only
material.
increased the
They
problem.
put that in temporarily. They probably
Right.
put some bigger stone in, then some
Right,
smaller
exactly,
stone. And the
exactly.
compaction's not there. You know, they can't compact it with your existing or cement driveway.
Right.
So if that does fail, or if it is, you feel that it's in jeopardy, I'm sure that they'd repair it.
Okay. Well, anyhow, I saw it on your agenda. I was delighted to see it on your agenda for next week, so, hopefully you'll give consideration to that. So, thank you.
Thank you for your time, sir. Your issues won't be forgotten, I assure you. Linda, I want to say, is that Ong or an E? E-A-N-G or O-N-G? Linda, if you'll...
She had to leave me.
Oh, okay. Would anybody else that is not signed in like to address council at this time? It is your time to, okay, Beth.
Beth Fishman, I'm a resident of Monroeville. Part of my questions have been answered. My monthly question, where are we at with the investigation? Apparently nowhere still. How are you permitted to tell us where the costs are? Can you ballpark them?
Yeah, that's public. We can.
Yeah, I don't know the exact amount, but I think we're sitting around 40,000.
Susan, is
I
that
can give you
correct?
an exact amount on Tuesday.
Lynette would know better than I do.
We're well over 50,000.
Yeah,
She said
I can
she'll
give
know
you an
exact
exact
amount on
amount.
56.
Yeah.
56,000, which does not,
Be more like 70,000 or.
yeah, it does not include, I don't believe we have July's bill yet.
And does that also include the investigator's bill? So we're looking at about $56,000, and I know that that isn't the most serious issue out of everything that's gone on, but it is a really important issue. Like Mr. Yakum, well, before I get to Mr. Yakum, let me ask you this. Because the report has been released, can I file a right-to-know request and get a copy of it for myself?
You asking me a question?
Yes.
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 No,
Why?
because the investigation's pending.
But it's been released. Apparently,
It's
the
not been released.
newspaper hasn't.
Well, I don't know if that's the case. You could get it from the newspaper. I know this agency would respond to your right to know by saying, this matter's still under investigation. That's an exception to the freedom of information, right to know, and it would not be disclosed at this point. There will become a time when the investigation's concluded that it could be, but not now.
Well, since apparently people have access, I don't want to wait for the investigation to be concluded, which it may never be. Which leads me to another question. Is there an internal investigation as to which one of you, with, I believe, the exception of Mr. Erb, because he returned his, released that report?
If you remember, there was some issue on that, Beth, that, I believe it was one of the statements, I would love to know who released it, but there's no way. I mean, if anybody up here released it, who's really going to admit that? So it's
Well,
almost.
who else but one of you could have released it? Is there anyone other than one of you that could have released it?
I don't know who all had access to that, to be honest with you. I know that we have a copy of it. Lynette certainly, if you remember that meeting, gave everybody a copy of that particular part of the investigation. That is not the entire investigation. That's only a part of it.
Is just that part available to the public?
I didn't see any final from what they sent HHS. Did we have a copy of that?
We have a letter from HHS.
No, that's the letter. That's not the actual
I
findings.
believe that is your letter.
That's it.
That's it.
We're going to pay it. Okay.
I thought you had a conversation with the attorney with regards to it that we didn't know anything about because you wanted information on it.
I was going to address that in my report.
I thought that you two communicated and we weren't advised of what happened, so, I mean, that's, you asked about, it. You said, is this all that was contained?
Well, I was going to do that in my report. I'll do it now.
So
I did talk to Bill Bresnahan, and I asked him point blank. I said, where is the investigation, and can I get a copy of it? Now, I did get the letter that you're referring to. I said, but what is actually what you sent? I'm sure they sent more, or at least I would hope they sent more, since the bill is what it is, to HHS. I requested to see that. And I also asked them very point blank, is there a HIPAA violation? I said, I don't believe there is. You know what his response was? I don't believe there was either. But to date, and I've called him, emailed him, left messages, he's only returned my call once. The very first time, that was a 3 o'clock Monday at his request.
This is my advice. Okay? No more talk about this.
I agree.
There's no more talk on this council about this matter. You should really listen to when the attorneys tell you not to talk. Don't talk about it. I mean, I'm just telling you, don't talk about it. It's not a good thing. You want to talk about the bills, you want to talk about some of the collateral things, that's okay. Let's not talk about whether there is or isn't a HIPAA violation, or whether Mr. Brezhnev alleged to say to you that there is no HIPAA violation or there is a violation. That's for Health and Human Services to decide. Let's just let the system work itself out. That's what we're here to do.
Well, along the lines of that, and I will talk about this, because like Mr. Yacom, all I have is the bits and pieces from the newspaper articles that are out there. And more than one article has said, Lieutenant Pasquarella was in charge of upgrading and replacing the systems. Lieutenant Pasquarella had super user privileges. Lieutenant Pasquarella was called to repair the faults that were found with the system. Lieutenant Pasquarella was the one that installed the software and provided the generic usernames. The Trib reported in April that he was the one that created the passwords for the first responders. The Post-Gazette likewise reported the same thing. If Lieutenant Pasquarella, now Chief Pasquarella, is the person that did this, he is every bit as liable for what's being blamed on Doug Cole. And I think that needs to be addressed by this council. And I would ask that this council thoroughly investigate that, and when you find out what Lieutenant Pasquarella, now Chief Pasquarella, did, you call for his resignation, and if he won't give it, then he be fired also. And I ask that Mrs. Allison abstain, given the position that her husband holds on the police force. I don't think that's a position that she should be in, to take that action. But based on everything that I've seen, that man is equally, if not more so, liable for what's been done and the access that may or may not be given. To address these allegations, the people saw rape information. No one that I know of has specifically said, I saw it. If there's someone in Monroeville that specifically saw it, that can address that fact and truthfully say this is what they saw, I ask that they contact Mr. Dice and just tell him. He doesn't have to share that information. If he came to me and said, someone told me they saw it and this is what they saw, I would believe him. But instead of hearing all these accusations, rumors, and innuendos that this is what was saw and this is how it was saw, let's look at the whole picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Once again, would anybody like to address council at this time? This is certainly your time to address council.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Ron Harvey. I'm a resident of Monroeville. I'm also a retired police officer, and I'm current fire chief of Monroeville No. 5 Fire Company. Up until this night, I was just trying to keep things in perspective, and as Mr. Dice said, let the investigation go on, let it reveal what it may reveal. But there was just a resident up here that made a couple comments that I think it's time that they be responded to. And the first one is the fire company accessing a rape report. What everybody doesn't know, because nobody asked, is I was there. And there was no rape report accessed. It was the call screen. And there is a giant difference between the CAD call screen and the report. The call screen is just what the information is given as the call taker takes the call from the 911 caller. The same information is broadcast over public radio. That is all that was seen, because when the EMT accidentally clicked on the wrong call to get his information for his report, he clicked on a police call that shouldn't have been displayed anyway and had been turned in 5 times by myself. Either way, it got so old, everybody was disregarding it, because back then, before all this, it was no big deal. Suddenly, it's a big deal. The word is report. There was no report accessed. It was the call screen. the same information is broadcast over every scanner in the country. So there was no rape report accessed. It said sexual assault - rape. And guess what? My fire company answers EMS calls to those same calls. So the person you're complaining about that saw it, chances are, goes in the ambulance to help those people. End of that story. As far as the investigative company, I love the news report about the Visa cards and stuff. Who's the last one? Somebody raised their hand when they called 911 and they said, "Excuse me, what's your Discover number?" And last but not least, if you pick up a Bearcat, or I don't even know what the makes are anymore, the scanners in Radio Shack, guess what happens if during every traffic stop? I am 25 years on the police department, and they stop you at 22 in Center Road. They give you your location. They call in your car make, model, plate number, and color. Then they get out of the car and get your documents, and they call in your name, date of birth, get the operator's information back, counting the last 4 of your social security number to see if you're wanted or there's any warrants for you, and to see if your driver's license. So all in one traffic stop, they got your make, model, color, serial number, plate number of the car, your name, date of birth, and the last 4 of your social. And it's all over public radio. HIPAA, are you kidding me?
Mr. Harvey, real quick, I have a question for you, if I can. If I recall correctly, back a ways, this council directed someone, the investigator, whoever it was, to talk to you.
No
And
one's
all
ever
this stuff
talked to
was
me.
going on. Were you ever interviewed?
No.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Once again, I'll open it up to the floor for any resident who would like to address council. Seeing none, we'll close that proportion of our meeting, and all members are present. And we'll go over to our meeting minutes of council meeting of May 14, 2013, the Citizens Night meeting of July 2nd, 2013, and the council meeting of July 9th, 2013. Council? I'm sorry.
Mayor, just so you know, the May 14th were put back on here because a motion was never made with the confusion that went on that evening with the vote. So that's why it's back on the agenda for a vote.
Thank you, Lynette.
Mrs. McKinney, will the actual minutes, the amendment, the draft, will that be presented on Tuesday? Will that be in our packet?
I believe that you guys got that by email through Sharon.
I can provide it if you like.
The final draft, that
You could put it in tomorrow's.
that Mr.
packet.
Zunick
You
actually,
could put that in tomorrow's packet.
that'd be great.
Absolutely.
That'd be great, thank you.
Any other comments, corrections, additions to these minutes before you, council? Seeing none, we'll move over to our reports of our tax collections. And again, council, any issues with our tax collections? Seeing none, we'll move over to our payroll report. Once again, I'll open it up to the floor for any comments from council. Seeing none, move over to our list of bills, and we'll start off with you, Clarence. Steve.
I have no questions.
Very good. Diane?
No questions.
I'll get back to Mr. Johns. He stepped off the Dios. Lois?
Well, yes, Mayor, I had these addressed. I sent them to Mrs. McKinney. They went to several departments. Some of them were budget transfers. I believe those have been answered. There was a breakdown on the list of bills, page 11, Dyson Associates, because I keep an eye on that and I multiply things out and I know what the flat fee was. When I see something that goes beyond the flat fee range, then I know to ask whether or not if it includes municipal outside fees. So I, as a result of that, got a itemized list. And I guess my question on that, because I see fees, expenses, would photocopy charges, June, time period of June, and payable to, on behalf of the court records, be miscellaneous? Or would that be part of that flat fee?
Are you referring under the solicitor's portion?
Under the solicitor's department, because the total amount, 17,984 and change, is a little higher. If you multiply that out, I already know what to expect for a flat fee for a yearly.
The 17,984 is taken out of the solicitor's line item, just like the 17,500 would be taken out.
So in other words, it could be less 1 month, more 1 month,
Yeah,
but
it'll never go below the 17,500 for Mr. Dice's retainer, but on occasion, there is postage, copy fees, et cetera.
That's what I was asking,
that are-
whether or not that falls outside miscellaneous. That's not included in the flat fee.
I don't think, no, that is outside the
Okay.
17,500.
All right. That answered that. There is another one on the list of bills, page 19, Glick Fire Equipment, in the amount of $813.77 for engine 41 AC compressor. My question was this for air conditioning or something else? Because when I see AC, I realize it might just be, I'm thinking a compressor for air conditioning on an engine. And when I saw 41 engine, I wanted to know if that was the engine that was to be replaced in 2014. And my reason being, if this is going to be a fire engine that's on the Capitol, intending to replace it in the year 2014, and you had a air conditioning issue, and you're heading into the cool months, and you are getting ready to rotate it out, if it's a 20-year mark, that, what are we doing replacing an air conditioning compressor?
Well, basically, the response I got from our Public Works Department was that actually 3 air conditioning units on truck 41, 42, and a Rescue 4 were brought in to be diagnosed, and that was fixed with a bad air compressor. Why they chose to fix that?
Yeah, because don't we approve payment before it's fixed? Isn't that what list of bills looks at? We're looking at, or are we saying that we already
It's already
purchased?
paid for.
It's
It's already paid for, but
That's
we've not approved this.
It's already purchased.
Well, I guess I have 2 questions then. Why did that happen? And the other thing was, am I correct in assuming this is an engine that, for lack of air conditioning, is an engine that will be around just for a few more months, not needing air conditioning, that would normally be replaced in 2014? That's getting $813.77 spent on replacing the compressor for the air conditioner. Am I right in thinking that it's the compressor for the air conditioner?
That's correct. It's the compressor.
I understand that you're trying to save some money here, but
Yeah.
we have traditionally, and we've looked at this historically, when we renegotiated the fireman's agreement, it's not as though January 1st we're going to have a new truck. It could end up being 2015. It could be, they could go through an entire summer, besides which September stays pretty hot. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just pointing out from my
Yeah, I realize.
standpoint.
This was
that
originally-
there's still quite a few hot weeks ahead of us.
Okay.
And the likelihood of us replacing the vehicle in a timely fashion next year I'm less than confident of it based on the history of Monroeville in terms of replacing vehicles.
Right, well, the reason I also say that is because it was slated for 2011, and it was deferred till 2014. So it normally would have been switched out in 2011. I mean, I'm looking just at the logistics of what, well, okay, it could have been replaced in 2011. Therefore, does this make sense? You're telling me, yeah, it probably does.
I would think so.
And we both worked on that fire agreement.
Right.
I'm aware of this, so that's my, I
would
just
think
want to
that repairs like
understand
that
whether or
would
not.
make sense.
But the other side of the question here is, do we not approve list of bills before they're paid?
We approve them before they're paid, but not before the work is done.
All right? Then we better approve it. And that's all.
Jim, you stepped out and we're on list of bills. Anything for us?
Yeah, I just have one question. On page 42, a check for $4,437 to Point Park University. I'm assuming it's education reimbursement for Pascarella?
That is correct. That was for his winter-spring semester that he had started in January.
That just automatically gets done and we don't have to, I don't know.
I thought that we stopped all schooling, no?
That was in his contract as assistant chief, and he started schooling in January prior to becoming the chief.
All righty then.
When was his, when did he become chief? What was his date?
March. So his classes were already 8 weeks into the process at that point.
And do you know what classes were taken?
No, but I can find out for you for Tuesday.
Yeah, it'd be
Get a
nice to
transcript.
find out.
We don't need to see his grades. I'm sure they were straight A's.
That was my only question.
Nick?
I had a question from earlier, Lynette answered, but I just wanted some clarification. On page 2, list of bills for AT&T, there was a bill for $1,231, and it said Police/Monroeville Fire Department 1 Wireless MDTS, and I guess there was some, that was just an error in?
Yeah, the description was incorrect. It no longer includes the MVD or MVFD number 1. It's just for the connectivity for the police laptops that amount is included for.
Is it still $1,231.79?
Yes, that is correct.
That won't change? It's just the description?
No.
Okay. And page 5, retirement incentive for former manager Bond. How long, where are we at with that? How many more months?
I believe it's one
September-ish.
more month, September of this coming
Yes.
next
I was
month.
going to say October.
It could be depending on when it started and when he stopped.
Is he the last of the employees
Yes.
under that incentive?
That is correct.
Okay. That's all I have this evening.
Very good. Vern?
I have no further questions.
All righty. Now we'll go over to budget transfers, and there are a lot of them. And again, we'll start off on year end.
I have no questions, sir.
Nick?
No questions this evening.
Lois?
They were answered, Mayor.
Jim?
Sir.
Diane?
None.
Steve?
I have none.
And Clarence. All righty, moving over to our proposals and bids. If you would, Lynette.
Yes, Mayor. The first item is the storm sewer lining project proposal, which you heard about earlier this evening, that's being complete in the municipality. Bids were received on August 5th at 10 a.m. Council has a package of information in their agenda, which lists the low bidder of Insight Pipe Contracting LP at $123,239. And Chester Engineering has a backup information to provide to council, and Paul or Sean can answer any of your questions.
Do we also get a list of which pipes are?
I can provide that to you. Yes, it was part of
Yeah,
the
so
bid.
we know in wards or.
Absolutely.
They seem significantly lower than the other two bidders that we received. Are we familiar with their work at all? Is this, are we getting a fairly similar product to what we would have been getting with one of these other ones, or are we getting something that's less than optimal?
No, it's based on a standard specification, so they're all bidding on the exact same product. Insight Pipe, just to let council know, they've done work for the past 3 contracts for the municipal authority and have installed well over 100,000 feet of liner for the municipal authority, and it's been very successful.
Okay.
Any other questions, council, on this item before you? Anything else for us, Lynette?
Not under bids and proposals, Mayor.
Okay, we'll move over to new business. If you would, please.
I think I'll do Mr. Shute.
Yeah, Mr. Hughes? Yeah. Or Shufo, I'm sorry.
All right, I'll read the description while Mark works his way up. This application is 13-3-C of Gateway School District / Harvest Bible Chapel. The applicant is requesting conditional use approval to permit the operation of a non-denominational church and children's ministry within the auditorium and classroom at the Gateway Middle School property located at 4450 Old Wayne Penn Highway in the R1 Single Family Zoning District. Mark?
Good evening. I'll point out a few things concerning this application. In the R1 district, the religious institution is considered a conditional use application. This is why we're bringing this forward to you. I know there were some questions about that earlier. The Planning Commission recommended approval for this application back on July 17th with conditions. One of the additional conditions that they recommended that we put on the resolution was that there was no duplicate of services on a Sunday morning. Traditionally, the Gateway Midget Football and Cheerleading Association would hold their games and cheerleading practices, and there were some concerns that the additional traffic from the church services plus the Gateway Midget Football traffic would pose some congestion problems for Old William Penn and Route 48 Haymaker Road area. So what we did is Paul Schott, who was representing the Gateway School District on the July 10th Planning Commission meeting, responded back to me on July 18th. And what had happened is that, yes, the Gateway Midget Football Cheerleading Association was scheduled to hold their games and cheerleading activities on that date. The Gateway School District School Board held a special meeting this past Tuesday, and they have since moved those, the Gateway Football, Midget Football, and Cheerleading Association over to the Gateway Gateway Middle School field and the Gateway High School for their games.
So they remedied the problem.
So there's no problems whatsoever with duplicate
That's what Paul
services,
wanted to say.
which was one of the concerns. What's that?
Paul, I'm sorry. Mark. Paul wanted to, Mark
Is that what Bruce wanted to say that Paul wanted to say?
Sorry, Paul.
That's right, we've got blue shirts on, so we're.
I know, that's
one
what's
of the same.
confusing.
It's the Blues Brother.
It's not the haircut, it's the shirts.
Your mother dressed by her?
No, she just cooks.
Any questions?
Any questions, council?
So the school district doesn't have any other problems with this at all?
They voted to approve it.
The facilities will be able to handle the Harvest Bible parishioners. There's no problem with parking over there. There's enough for 202 parking spaces. They're utilizing the auditorium and a couple of the classrooms over there for their children's ministry classrooms, and the auditorium will use for the recreational area. So,
Any other questions or comments for Mark?
I think, I watched that planning commission meeting. I think that was the only real concern because of that. And apparently, they needed to look back and find out where it needed to be, but they indeed moved that. So.
in our current zoning ordinance, there's not specific conditional use regulations, but they still have to follow the general standards. And part of the general standards are the performance standards within the ordinance, and one of those was for traffic, so that's why they brought that up to me.
Yeah, okay.
So it was a good call on their part.
Anything else, council, for Mark? Thank you, sir.
Well,
Now we'll move over to resolutions, and Lynette, if you would.
Yes, the first resolution is a resolution for the disposition of records as set forth in the Municipal Records Manual. July 19th was our municipal building cleanup, and these are just our typical items from the tax office that need to be disposed of and destroyed.
Questions or comments on this item before you?
Just a housekeeping project then.
Absolutely. Lynette, if you would.
The second resolution is a resolution authorizing a license agreement for a municipal information center in space 231-A at the Monroeville Mall. As council's aware, this was the space that was leased to the municipality last year for a satellite police station. We have now met with the mall and come up with a new concept. Basically, various departments, the police, Parks and Recreation, Convention Visitors Bureau, the Senior Center, the library, is actually going to make a information center space where residents, as they shop at the mall, will be able to go in and browse brochures. There'll be a informational TV screen there. So it's kind of taking on a new development, and the mall is very excited that we're moving this direction, so.
Questions or comments, council?
It would appear that we have audiovisual equipment already.
Yes.
And there's no additional budget.
Absolutely. And,
Do we have
just-
permits?
Yes. And just so the general public knows, there's no cost to the municipality for the rental of the space.
Well, you were going to say something.
Yeah, it has no impact on any policing that's being done at the mall either?
Absolutely none, no.
Okay.
Okay, before we get to the next one, Lynette, Mr. Dice, if you would.
What would you like me to do?
Just basically, since this is an employee
Oh,
issue.
yeah,
that-
number 3 is a resolution approving a service agreement with an employee. And again, this is something that is not part of a public record at this point. The vote will be the vote to accept or reject the agreement, and I would suggest to you that you should have no comment concerning the matter, because there's a provision, I believe, in the agreement that talks about council not commenting.
So,
Did
Lynette,
you
if
want to,
would.
did you want to pass out the agreements to date, or did you want to hold those?
Oh, why don't we give it to council?
Okay, I just didn't want to put it in the general packets.
That's fine.
I hope you didn't mind this stuff.
No.
Can you speak to precedents at all, Bruce?
We've done I don't know that I want to, we have done this before. We've
put an
operated with this
executive session on
agreement.
this?
Well, I'm not going to mention any names. We've done it in various departments, in the police department, in the planning department, in the manager's department. This kind of agreement has been used before.
I'll speak to you offline, and if it's appropriate, we'll bring it up Tuesday.
Okay.
Okay, Lynette, if you
Sorry,
would.
go ahead, Lynette. Sorry.
Yes, the fourth resolution is a resolution approving a license agreement between Tara Gabrielson and the municipality of Monroeville for slope reconstruction on Dawkins Drive. Actually, this resolution is sponsored by Councilman Duncan, so I'm going
Steve,
to
we gotta
let you take over there.
Yeah, the problem exists at the bend on Dawkins Drive, where there's currently a railroad tie retaining wall. And what happens is all the water flows over the curb, which is low, and we're going to raise the curb. And it knocked out a portion of this retaining wall. My feeling is that if we allow this to continue, that we're going to lose a portion of the road. So I contacted the manager and Mr. Hugus, and Paul looked at it, and the residents in agreement that we could slope. It would entail us, Public Works, coming in, pulling the existing railroad ties out and just sloping that property. That would reinforce the road, then raising the curb, and that should alleviate any problems. If we lose the wall, I feel confident that we'll lose a portion of Dawkins at the bend. The neighbors, or the property owners, in total agreement, and should be appreciative of it. It's in our right-of-way. There may be a couple of feet where we have to take 2 pine trees down that just extends outside the right-of-way somewhat. Also, between the 2 properties at 2331 and 2333 on Lower Monroeville Road, we have a current catch basin at the top of, at Dawkins, near the fault. It runs down to Lower Monroeville Road, which is failing also. We've encountered a sinkhole, we went down and patched it up. It's on the list to be lined. So I feel confident that this is like a day and a half fix. And I do have a question. You know, this was brought into a resolution. Is this unprecedented? I don't know if this is because it's in my ward or what. I've never seen a resolution to do a repair job. Will I see a resolution for every project from now on?
Any type of license agreement, Councilman Duncan, that we're entering into. That I'm
We've signed many of agreements that the people allow us to, you know, come onto their property, do what we want. I've never seen it brought to a resolution. I've talked to other council members, and they haven't seen it either.
I just thought it was the best interest
Okay.
of the municipality that if we have these agreements that we're
So any agreement
entering
from
into an
now on, it's
agreement
not
with the
just me.
residents. Correct.
Okay.
That it's best that council, being that we're spending public funds, that you have a vote
Well,
from council
And
to,
again, on this project, I don't foresee any, other than our equipment use and manpower.
right.
And it's
Still an expenditure to the
on
municipality.
our
so-
right-of-way, and it needs to be addressed, so I'd appreciate it.
What has been done in the past?
I'm sorry.
What has been done in the past if Public Works has to go on to private property?
If we have a signed agreement, I'd take it to the manager. When I was superintendent, I'd take it to the manager would sign off, and away we'd go. You know, the property owner and the manager. This is the first time I've seen it personally come to a resolution. And if that's fine, if that's the way it's going to be.
We had a resolution when we did the Taylor Street improvements, though.
Well, I mean, don't you think that was a little more of a entailed, you know, that's the $300,000 job.
Right.
And again, I'm not arguing it But I want to see it for every job then.
Agreed.
What do we do if there's a
Minor or,
time-sensitive issue? What if,
I don't know.
is there a
This
way
is,
that we
again,
could,
unprecedented, and I'm concerned about it.
particularly this summer where there's a lot of heavy rains, I know there's some,
If the wall
Old
would
Ramsey
blew up
Road, there's an
between
issue.
When I was notified 3 weeks ago and now, we'd have an issue. It would cost the taxpayers a lot of money, which we could have resolved in a day and a half, but we had to wait till a council meeting to bring this resolution to light. And
We can
that's,
always, if there's an emergency situation, we can always call a special meeting if
but once
need
it,
be.
once it would have failed completely and we lose a portion of the road, then it's an emergency situation.
I wasn't aware of that.
I'm
I was
trying
just
to,
aware that there was just a cooperation between the resident and the municipality to go onto the property and fix it.
Actually, it's in our right-of-way, so we're not really approaching on, what I wanted her to sign was in case something would approach the house, hit the house, a boulder, a rock, whatever, that type. That was
guess
my
I-
only concern.
you can access, they'll be able to access it from the road?
All from the road, yeah, no equipment would be on her property.
Okay, because that was what I was confused about. You said this is on the list, it was on the list to be lined. I didn't know what you meant by that.
That's another subject, but there is a failed storm sewer between her house
Yeah,
and Lower Monroeville Road
all right.
that is on the list, hopefully it's on the list, at least I was informed by Paul that.
It is.
That's to be lined. It's
That's the
failed.
list that we're all going to get?
Yes. But it's another, it really, well, it probably did affect this total, job, but the line is failed. So they're going to,
And my other concern is, because I don't have memory of that either, but when I first read this, I saw private property, accessing private property, and then we're making an agreement between, we're not doing private property
all the work
repair.
can be done, Paul, you can. you
Yeah,
were at the
I was
job
not
site.
clear
All the
on
work
that.
can be done from, within our right-of-way and from the road.
All right. Because of the condition happening in the right-of-way is affecting the stability of the wall.
Exactly.
Which potentially might wash out the road.
Yeah.
And if the wall fails completely, which it looks like it could at any day, if it fails completely, we're going to, that land will slide away and expose the road.
All right.
Paul, have you seen this?
Yes, ma'am.
And you agree with everything that?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Paul. Lynette.
Yes, the fifth resolution is a resolution approving a facility use agreement between Monroeville Baseball Association and the municipality of Monroeville for the use of ball fields, concession stands, and other related areas. And while we're talking, we might as well talk about number 6, too. It's the exact same thing, but for Monroeville Soccer Club. Mr. Estock and myself have been working on this. It actually started last year when this item appeared in our management letter from our auditor, requesting clarification of the funding that the soccer and the baseball associations provide to the municipality and for more clarity in their agreements. So we've been working forward, and I gave council a copy of the resolutions in their mailboxes that actually had red changes on it. The one in the agenda packet does not. So if you have any questions, Mr. Estock is here, or
Well, before Paul speaks, I serve as the liaison to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and typically these things are run through the board, and the residents that are on that board discuss these matters. Just so happens that August is the one month that we do not have a meeting, because it's an in-between between summer and fall activities and vacations, so we do not have a meeting. So the Parks and Recreation Board has not discuss this in an open forum. They've been emailed the agreements, but I think it would be prudent to have them look over the agreements, discuss them, and then I think we should move to pull this off the agenda for Tuesday and perhaps put it in September's agenda and give the Recreation Advisory Board a moment to, a meeting to discuss these things. Because, yeah, it's been in the works for a while. Mr. Silka had meetings revolving around this, and it was something they've been dealing with. And I believe they actually they wouldn't be taking effect until January anyway, so it's not like we're under a time constraint here. So I would, I certainly don't want to discourage anyone on council from asking Mr. Estock questions, but he may be giving answers that might not be accurate once the Recreation Department looks at these agreements. Maybe they may make some modifications. So I would ask that we consider moving this till September's meeting.
When are they typically signed? When do they typically get entered into?
Well,
The problem
that's kind of
is-
the issue. There was no entered into date. What we're trying to change on the new contract or the new agreement is that the payments would be made in May and September. Some payments have been made in 2013. We're trying to nail down the exact amount, and then what I was hoping for, that the balance of that would be due at the September 1 date. But by all means, we can delay it.
What's happened in the past?
I do
is-
agree that the Recreation Board should probably discuss it prior to.
Just so you
would have
understand,
had you
when
at
I
the
did
meeting.
this, it's on me. I told Lynette we'd take it to the board, and I completely forgot that we didn't have an August meeting.
So you would have done that?
We would have done it in
That was the
August,
plan. We're-
but-
I was trying to.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah, so
it's my
probably
fault
a
for
good idea
that.
to
Yeah.
delay that.
I just
And
think.
what's happened in the past is the agreement we had before just kind of was, it was very vague. And we found that out through this auditor's report and stuff like that, so we've been trying to clean it up. Some things went to Bruce to take a look at his group and stuff like that, so we're progressing to a better solution. We really are.
Other than the red line, has this been pretty much the same agreement as last time? Because I remember
Yes, ma'am.
liaison from
Pretty
last
close.
time. when-
Yeah, it's some changes. And I've had some brief meetings with them and stuff like that, and I've kept Lynette apprised of them. We've gotten some responses back and some emails that some of us are aware of, so, it's progressing well.
Well, let me ask you this point blank, Paul. You know, and I know that a couple of years ago when this was first really coming, into play, there was a lot of discussion, if you will. Are both organizations okay with the way we're proceeding?
The way we're proceeding currently, yes. They do have some questions. They absolutely do.
They have
And
no
we're aware of
issues
those.
with the funding issues or any of that? All that seems to be,
And we were planning on having them at the rec board meeting as well, and
Actually, both of their
They're part of the board,
lead
too.
presidents are part of our rec board.
Yeah, Eileen is in, yeah,
Right.
so,
I
yeah, I
still
don't
wanna
want to
get
say
that
yes
out.
or no, I'm just saying that they have some issues that they want to talk to us about, and we would want to do that, so, but I'll proceed however you tell me.
oh, well, continue, obviously, Paul, if it's not working well. I can't imagine anybody on council.
Yeah,
not
both
saying-
groups are good people, I mean, it's worked out well this year, how they treat us and how we treat them is wonderful, I mean, it's a great, Johnny and them guys up there do a wonderful job working with those guys, and we don't have a lot of issues with them. It's pretty well seamless,
Both Mr. Smith and Mr. Lehman from soccer and baseball have given kudos to our Parks Department. I mean, they can't speak highly enough of everything that the crew has done and the
And they
conditions of our fields
They
and how
understand,
everything is.
times are tough, and they understand that, so.
And that's all I wanted to hear from you, Paul.
Mr. Dice, procedurally, how do we go from here?
What I would suggest is, if there's no objection with anybody on council, Lynette would pull off 5 and 6 and just put them back on for the meeting in September.
What's the difference between that and just tabling them?
Well, then you don't have to go through the process of tabling.
And you have to take them off the table.
Yeah, it just makes it
It's a
more
motion, yeah.
cumbersome.
Yeah.
I would suggest if there's no objection, Lynette, take them off this next, and have them back on for September's meeting. There will be an opportunity between now and
September
then.
9th, we're meeting, is the rec board's next meeting, September 9th.
That gives you enough time.
Because September 2nd is Labor Day.
Labor Day, right.
So
Okay,
it'll
we
be
won't
that-
have our meeting yet, right?
That would be
Correct.
the Monday prior to
Prior
our
to, right,
Tuesday
exactly.
meeting.
Okay, so we'll list them for September.
Now, the only thing is, there would be no feedback if the meeting's on September 9th at the work session. We would not have feedback yet, because the meeting would be happening on Monday, our council meeting would be the 10th on Tuesday.
We can have the meeting for rec board if we want, we can pull it up
Change the
earlier.
date.
Yes, sir, yes, ma'am, sorry.
Council, do you have any objections to pulling these off and putting them back on in September?
No, but I like the idea of maybe moving your meeting up, yeah. Give you an idea or give you time.
We'll try to do it that Tuesday, the 3rd.
But also, too, Mr. Estock did email the agreements to all the members of the rec board, so they will have time to review it, but
They
we-
have.
but we just haven't discussed it in an open forum, which certainly things get done better there, typically.
Just to go on record, the rec board members, no one had really any comments at all. Everyone seemed to be fine with it, so I think the process is moving the right direction.
Once again, any issues with removing these and putting them on September? Seeing none, I guess you'll do that, please.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Dice?
Yes. The first ordinance is an ordinance to provide for the amendment of the 2008-2010 capital improvement budget.
Annette, if you'll maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yes, this is the ordinance from last month that council actually tabled. This is money from the 2008 bond issue, approximately $225,000 remaining from that bond issue that needs to be reallocated to other capital improvement projects. We addressed that last month, that we were going to allocate that to our police mobile radios, our fob system, our UP system, our phone system, and our computer system. I have Jason from Chryson actually in the audience.
I have some questions.
If council has any questions, he is our technology guru, and I'm sure he can assist you in any way.
Okay. I guess first off would be the 60,000 for the police mobile radios. Are we talking of buying, we're currently at VHF, and all the vehicles have VHF radios, walkie-talkies, and...
Actually, probably Jason can't answer the question. Probably.
Okay, well, maybe I'll
Yeah.
say that to you.
Yeah.
What are we going to purchase with the 60,000?
Well, basically, the Public Safety Committee, actually Councilwoman Allison
I have an update for you.
has
You want me to do it now?
Yeah, do you want to?
Sure. Grab my notes.
So this is what we're going to be
Yeah,
spending
this
the
is-
60 grand on?
We have, right now, all of the police radios in the cars are over 20 years old, and their parts are obsolete. So as they break, we're replacing them with other parts, and before you purchase a whole system of all the new radios, we were wondering if we should go to UHF, and that's where the whole issue came in with the lines and everything like that. But right now, when Mr. Harvey came up with Chief Pascarella, when they did the narrow banding, it affected our VHF, and they're unable to communicate. And we actually have been working with the fire chiefs and everyone. We had a meeting on the 25th. It was a follow-up from the presentation, Chief Pascarella, and was assisted by Ron Harvey to discuss the recommendations. This was the recommendations that were given by Terry, they've been working with, who went to the fire chiefs meeting, and he did a whole review of our system, went through everything to find out what was wrong. We found out we have basically 3 fried antennas. They believe they were hit possibly by lightning. One was on the crown tower, which is where...
These are repeaters? Or?
No, this is a antenna, not the repeater. They're fried. They believe hit by lightning, and unfortunately, it's not taken care of by any type of contract for repairs or anything like that. One was on the crown tower, and one was Foxwood and Illini. We actually have to replace 2 of the antennas. It's not covered under anything. There are a cost to replace them. We also have an unused repeater, and this was the issue that one is near, is in Pitcairn, and they have Verizon. Verizon apparently wouldn't let us in at one time, but now they actually will let it be hooked up. The antenna on the crown tower was temporarily repaired, so we get a new one. The burned out antenna on Foxwood Water Tower has been ordered and scheduled to be installed. Phone lines are ordered and will be installed on the 13th on the water tower, and then water tower on the 20th. Daily will activate the repeater as the lines are installed and tested.
So are they moving this repeater from Pitcairn to one of
No.
our dead spots?
No, it's sitting there hooked up.
Why wouldn't we do that?
There's a repeater there that's never been used. It's never been hooked up.
Right.
So we're trying to, right now you have a dead spot, Pitcairn.
Oh,
Pitcairn
okay.
can't communicate.
So you do
with-
have a dead spot in Pitcairn?
Pitcairn can't communicate with Monroeville or.
How come it was never hooked up? It's just kind of odd.
Well, they started with because we're Comcast, they're Verizon wouldn't, so it was a whole issue with.
And actually, Pitcairn has their own cable system. They don't have
Right.
Comcast or Verizon, so that's where the issue began.
Okay, so we're not purchasing radios per se, we're fixing antennas and
Well, with
repeaters.
everything that Councilwoman Allison is saying, it's all of a fix, but we still are going to try to move forward with switching over to the UHF lines. So I
Why?
wanted to allocate, why?
In my conversation with Chief Pascarella, it would take at least a minimum of a year for us to acquire through the county a UHF
Correct.
line.
We
So
were-
why would we buy equipment now?
We're not going to buy it, but we want to allocate the money there, so when the switchover does occur, that the money is available for those radios.
At least a year from now.
Exactly.
Well, if you don't, right now, we were told by Chief Kotowski that there's apparently a waiting list. If we don't go through the process, which some of it, that the person was it Chris at number 5 Fire Hall was going to help us apply for it. We have to pay to apply
Okay.
for it. And we're going to be put on a waiting list, so when everything kind of is needed, we are at least halfway there, and we're already on the waiting list for when it would need to occur. And they're going to run a test of everything. Then there may be other, when they run the test to see if maybe that helps some of the dead areas, dead spots, the communication problems, it's extensive, that we may need actually other equipment at that point as
Okay,
well.
I just thought that we were upgrading to UHF and we possibly wouldn't have the line. My
Well,
other question was
Sorry.
for the fob system on this. We
Mr.
have-
Duncan, I'm sorry, I just have one quick question about the waveforms.
Okay.
Is there a possibility that we won't get a waveform, a UHF?
We were told
bandwidth?
that we will be put on a waiting list. Right now, it's a waiting list.
But we may, it's
I was
possible.
told that it possibly we may not get it at all.
Well, you could, but if you try to apply for it when you need it, it's kind of better to apply for it now and be put on that waiting list.
Was something we could apply for, but put this in the next capital budget as far as allocating funds to it?
Well, this is the issue with the radios and the vehicles. That we have, I believe, $150,000 on our capital improvement. You're going to place all the car radios, they're over 20 years old. They're breaking and their parts are obsolete.
So there's $150,000 now that's already going towards it, so this additional 60.
No, we haven't changed it. The radios haven't been replaced. That was the whole issue. Should we replace them with all VHF or try to get UHF? Remember the whole presentation?
Right?
Well, right now, the radios in the vehicles are VHF.
I understand
They're over 20 years old, parts are obsolete, they're trying to take parts from others. So as you have no more parts left and you can't fix them, what do you do when the radios break?
I don't,
Well, I understand, but the money issue, that like,
I don't know that every radio is 20 years old. When,
They've
from
been
my
taken out
memory,
of
when
cars
we'd
and
get
put
a
in
new
other
police
cars.
car, I can recall brand-new radios being installed out of boxes. But, I guarantee they're not all 20 years old.
so what are we, and I'm sorry for, maybe I'm a little confused, what are we buying with the $60,000? Or are we just allocating funds for perhaps the future, if we possibly may get on the waiting list and then get approved?
That is correct.
So we're really not spending this money, we're just
kinda
saying,
setting it aside because we feel that coming down the road, if we go to the VHS and all the repairs are made, and then we switch over to the UHS next year, we're not only going to need radios in the cars, but we're going to need handheld radios for the officers. So the expense of both of those items is going to need to be funded.
so this would stay in the 2008, 2010 capital improvement budget, even though we maybe not be spending this money for 3 or 4 years from now?
Well, we're hoping that we would be
Oh, I'm
spending it
going to
sooner
know
than
because
that.
he is a fire chief.
What about like?
He was
what-
at our meetings, everything.
I'm just asking a couple, maybe it's a Mrs. Worksman question. If we're going to allocate these funds, can we pay for things in the future, next year, next capital budget, out of money from the 2010 capital budget?
Sure. Any of your past budgets that you've allocated budget.
You just have it allocated
for,
towards it and
they
it
can
sits
spend
there?
it At any point in time.
Okay, that's what I was getting
So
at.
it's not like use it or lose it.
Correct.
You can carry it over year to year.
And the reason why Mr. Harvey's here, he was part of that process. And I know that we're kind of like going out of sync a little bit, but since this is a big money issue, Ron, you're a fire chief, I would certainly have no issue.
Addressed the concerns of the Public Safety Committee. We kind of put the brakes on things and said, look, let's find out what the problem is before we try to fix it and go the wrong direction. I even, via Lynette, was in her office and got the green light to go out and not only apply to see what the availability of UHF frequencies were, but to start checking our current system as it's in place. And everybody agreed, including Terry from Motorola, who I have to tell you, in all my years of dealing with radio communications, is probably the wisest, most common sense guy I ever met in my life. And he knows his stuff, and he's the one that keeps county up and running too. Either way, the first thing that was needed to be done was a check of our system.
Ron, that's what I just said. Terry went and did a whole check. That's, I just went over, I gave you his report from Terry of what he said he found, including the fried antennas and the repeaters now going to be hooked up. We authorized him to go ahead and do the check, and that's what we're doing, what Terry said.
But the propagation study showed that the police department would be much better to stay on VHF than switch to UHF. They have better coverage than oh yeah, it does. And they have 95% coverage if they get that pick here and repeater up.
He actually they showed us what the coverage is now, so they can do a comparison study, and after all the repairs on the 20th, they're going to do another comparison study. If it's close, then that's when the decision will be made.
95% coverage, which you're not going to get any better than that, with the Pitcairn repeater site activated. Also, he came in and cleaned up the whole dispatch center, the programming on the computers that do the radio selections, and they can tap into the county and mutual aid with the push of 2 buttons. So, what I'm saying is that if Steve's, I agree that you can't fix what they don't make parts for, and so it seemed to me that the purchase should be, and Terry even suggested that to buy new VHF mobile radios and continue to operate off your current system, unless you had intentions of switching to the county.
Well, let me put it this way to you. I guess I would like to say that maybe we should see that report from Terry.
It's going to be done. He's going to do a whole testing of the system on the 20th, and we're following Terry's recommendations.
But I still think we should get it in black and white, everybody.
We're going to, you're going to have
Everyone's forgetting the $60,000, even if we allocate it to police mobile radios and we find in a month that we don't need that money, we can reallocate it to another project. But for right now, because there's an unknown out there, I feel it's best to take that money that we know that we have available and set that aside, because we do not know.
Well, that's certainly up to you guys to manage that.
Oh.
I'm just saying that the FCC response to that VHF frequency availability is like,
You're talking about the UHF.
Right.
yeah, I'm sorry, the UHF new frequency availability?
Yes.
Okay, if I may suggest that we get a price on the repair of the antennas that she had mentioned.
We already did. They're already moving forward.
So if that's, let's say, 10 grand, so you'll have $50,000 we know that you put away that we're not going to spend, but it's there.
Right.
Okay.
And next year, if we find out that the system is all working properly,
We could put that
you can put
$50,000
that
back into the capital.
$50,000 back into whatever you choose to
if
put
we
back.
apply for the UHF and they give us one, then we need it to be able to do that, because we're going to move forward to apply for the UHF line, which we may or may not.
If it's appropriate. I mean, I'm going by what Ron's saying, that the VHF is a 95%
Well,
coverage. If you're not going to
we saw-
get any better,
Mayor, I saw the whole thing that he took a, he
Well,
shows the whole
again,
picture
I
of.
said I'd like
He's
to
going
see
to do a comparison of what, he's going to go through the system, do it again, he's going to show the committee. So we're following Terry, but we're not following anybody else than the professional's advice.
I understand. But
And
again,
and
I'd like to
Harold's the
see
one
it
who
in
showed
black
it,
and
so
white.
feel free to go ahead and verify with Harold.
Because again, if we do make that switch over to the UHF, you're talking big money. You're not talking 50 cents. You're not even talking 50,000.
A lot of the things we're doing now can still be used, whether they're VHF or UHF, so we're not really
Well,
wasting the money
but it'll
on
still be a
anything.
lot of money, and let's be honest, we have a $6.5 million deficit, not even counting the deficit we have now facing 2013. So,
And I definitely agree with you, Mayor, but if we have one officer that can't communicate, then we have
there's
severe
nobody
issues.
going to disagree with that.
Absolutely.
Nobody's going to disagree with that, but we
So,
have to be smart with our money.
Yeah, we're taking one step at a time. We're
But
following Terry's
UFH
advice.
would not necessarily mean that we wouldn't have an officer that couldn't communicate.
No, it would not.
Okay.
There
Just so
there
we're
was-
all,
yeah, there-
you know, we're
yeah,
not
there's
putting
not-
an officer in jeopardy
It's
because
very
we're
evident that we
VHF.
have very many dead spots currently. If what they're
Well, if we
recommending.
have repeaters sitting around that aren't activated, we're going to have dead spots.
Right.
There's
only one that's not activated, and that's
That
the
may
one
be
on
the one
13th
that
Street.
takes care of the dead
It
spot.
could be, he's going to do a test, so we're trusting again the professionals, and there was a significant change when they narrow banded. If these fixes can take us back to where it was prior to the narrow banding, he'll let us know.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, the second ordinance is an ordinance to provide.
Excuse me.
There are other items, I believe.
Yeah,
I think we want to.
to the first one. I'm not trying to drag this out, I just have a couple other questions. On the SWAB system, we have $25,000 allocated.
Yeah, Jason?
Now, have we gotten any estimates? That's for this building and Public Works?
No,
right?
actually, we've decided not to switch Public Works. We've decided to repair.
Okay.
Basically, what's occurred is our system at both
have we
places
gotten-
is basically obsolete. The only thing
Well-
that they could fix it with are remanufactured parts, which have no warranty.
Updated and remanufactured at roughly $200 to $400 per unit.
$400 to $800 per unit.
Well, the one we just had repaired was $400.
Correct.
And updated.
$400 to $800, $400 being the minimum.
I was told 2 to 4, but I did hear the last one was $400.
Correct. $400
There's
to
6
$800.
units, correct?
Correct.
For
So
all the
what
buildings.
we
That's Public
decide-
Works in here.
What we've decided to do is actually go with a new fob system at the municipal building, and the parts system that would actually come out of the municipal building would all be backup parts for the Public Works garage.
Do we get an estimate for this building?
We haven't got a confirmed estimate.
I don't believe
They're actually-
$25,000 is even going to come close.
Well, actually, Jason can probably address a little bit of that. He's actually been speaking with the different companies. We have some options that we can go with.
There are a few different options depending on what type of system you want to upgrade to. Just the standard system with controller still, or going IP-based. One of the quotes that we have gotten back is about $34,000, but that's the only quote that we've received so far. We're waiting.
And that would be using the same existing hardware?
That would be using about 75% of the existing hardware, the readers, the door strikes. The only thing that would be changing is the type of controller.
So the controller?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Jason. Around 35,000, is that what you said?
For the first quote, and that is with all
Well,
labor included.
but we could rebuild these controllers, these current controllers, so $800 apiece. So there's 4 in this building, I believe, 2 or 4.
There's actually one main controller in this building, and then
So that's
16
800 compared to 30-some thousand.
But that is a main controller that controls the 16 door controllers for
Right.
this building. So each door controller is $400 to $800, and then the main controller is $3,000. But also,
I didn't hear of anything on a main controller.
there is one main controller per building that controls.
And that needs rebuilt?
That was one of the parts at Public Works that was rebuilt, yes. And that is a $3,000 cost, but each door controller is between $400 and $800. And that's for a refurbished part. For a new door controller off of like an IP-based system, it's about $500 for a brand-new part
Mayor?
versus getting
Yes.
refurbished.
Can he move to the other microphone? That battery must have died on us. Thank you.
Little red lights out, so it did die.
I can't even see it. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Thanks, Joe.
For the newer parts, though, it would be $500 per new controller versus $400 to $800 for a repair of a refurbished part that we wouldn't get a warranty with.
So there's no warranty with, if a door goes and you're spending $500 to repair it, there's no warranty?
No, there's no warranty. It's a refurbished part. So if that part were to go again, we'd have to pay for it to be refurbished again.
Well, I assume this will go out for bids and we'll get more than one bidder, am I correct?
Yes,
So
we've had three
We're
companies.
beating a
so-
dead horse till we don't even know what we're looking
Well,
at.
I mean, you're allocating 25,000.
Oh, no,
I
no,
just
no
don't feel
question, Steve.
comfortable
No
that
question.
would be
No,
enough.
and you're also looking at the fact if you have to keep repairing something and you're spending $500, and you got no warranty.
I don't have a warranty, but there's a total of 6 panels. So if you, at the max,
no,
if
I
you
think there's-
replaced all of them at $800.
Well, let's find
But
out if
we-
that's true.
We have 6 dead panels right now, but there are 16 panels just for this building. That's
Right.
not counting Public Works.
So when you say that, like a new one would be $500,
Per
correct, is what
panel.
you're saying? About,
Yes.
do they just swap out, or is there extra wiring that needs to be done? Is
There is a little bit of extra wiring that needs done per door, but the first estimate included that, and any quotes coming forward, we told them to include that in the price.
I'd be
for
curious to
rewiring.
see what those estimates come in at.
I just want to know that we're not spending, putting good money after bad to repair something that's obsolete. That's what I hear.
That's why we were very encouraged to hear that the system here could be used over at Public Works to extend the life of that building as not to replace both buildings.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Obviously, we'll be looking at some RFPs and go from there.
I just want to know if there's any implications about other things if they go out, such as, you have a UPS system.
Could you, Jason, is that your area, UPS? Could
Not
you
the
explain that?
UPS, no.
No? Can anybody explain it?
I can explain a little bit. What is your question?
What exactly,
Well, the UPS system actually went out. We had 2 UPSs downstairs in our basement level. It's the backup system when the power goes down. When the UPS system went down, we actually lost power throughout certain parts of the building, including our dispatch center. So we actually did not have a dispatch backup center for approximately 10 to 15 minutes, I believe.
Why would it
was.
take that long when our generator kicks in within 2 minutes?
It did not kick in that quickly for some reason.
I mean, maybe we should look at the generator.
Well, Dom tested the generator, and he said everything was fine with it. But it took a few minutes to get over to the generator system.
so the UPS system is actually the battery backup that just buys us time from as soon as the electricity cuts out until the generator kicks in?
Correct. And there's actually 2 of them.
And the
they're
2
wired
cover the entire
separately.
building.
Correct.
And theoretically, how long would it take if you did have a break and it affected
Well-
dispatch to get dispatch back on?
My question is, I have one at home, that if my electricity goes out, my
Dispatch.
computer stays on. Okay? It's a battery backup. Why could not the dispatch, I mean, irregardless, if our computers here in the building go down for 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, it's not the end of the world. Dispatch, I could see that. I think our redundancy down there, I mean, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for this system to back up 2 computers in the dispatch center when they could probably have a separate battery pack.
Well, I believe that we actually purchased a separate battery UPS backup already now for the dispatch center because of that.
So you're good to go then on the dispatch center.
For the dispatch, yes, we purchased.
Now, what is the harm if our computers go down here for a matter of minutes until the generator kicks in?
Well, that's why I asked the question.
Rather than spend.
One of the reasons that you put UPS systems in has nothing to do with the downtime. It's to be able to power off your PBX, all of your computer equipment needs to be powered off properly. And if you just allow it to just shut down because the power goes out, it can create bigger problems because you can damage the equipment itself. And so that's why you have the UPS systems. And that's more important than keeping the entire municipality working the entire day. And the UPS systems aren't going to give you necessarily an entire day of working. They're going to give you enough time to shut everything down.
Well, it's going to give you enough time till the generator kicks on.
Hopefully.
I just want to know the implications, that if something were to go off, you'd lose dispatch, how long it would take to come back online.
Well, with the UPS system, immediately. It wouldn't go off.
Right.
It would revert directly to the battery until the generator kicked in.
With the UPS system, yes.
Which we're already set up with right now.
And he has that at the dispatch center.
Yes.
But what Bern's referring to, it could damage our hard drives or whatever.
Yeah, the equipment we have downstairs.
Makes sense. I'm just
the
asking
hard
the
drives, the
questions here.
PBXs. We have a lot of expensive equipment here that needs to be shut down properly.
Any other questions, council?
One more. On the phone system, $80,000 for phones. And from my understanding, is the computer's out and we can't change.
Computer's actually blinking red, and Jason's actually more technical than I. The system was brought over from the old municipal building when we had the Merlin system. And you can address it way more than I can.
Well, I want to get back quick to the UPS system that ties into this phone system. Because of the UPS system going down, the phone system did take a small hit where the administration card for the phones is no longer functioning, so we can no longer administrate the phones. We can't make changes to the extensions and items like that. And in bringing in, with our maintenance contract, we got support and we had somebody come out. We found out that part of the phone system came from the old municipal building and was slightly upgraded at that time to handle more phone lines. But the end of life of that system for the one that came out of the old building was in 1999, and the upgrade parts end of life was 2006. So unfortunately, under maintenance, we can't even get the phone system repaired at this point.
It's that old.
Yes.
I guess I should say it's that, I guess you could have an old system, but if it's obsolete and you can't get a card for.
Yes, we can.
What
The
is-
administration card is part of the CPU card. It's pretty much the motherboard of the phone system, so it contains the processor, all the programming, and the memory for the phone system. And as of right now, we just can't administrate the system.
Any other questions or comments?
I just keep trying to, think of scenarios. If the phone system goes out, does it cascade into anything else?
No, the world doesn't come to an end. It's like anything can happen.
Well, is there any possibility that anything else can happen?
If the phone system were to go down, we can't get parts for it. It would be a complete rebuild for a new phone system. Yes.
So the $80,000, is that an estimate at this point on your end, or if we had quotes?
That is a general estimate from 3 different companies of what it would take to replace the current system that we have.
Okay.
That will be shared with council then.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments?
Does any of this affect the dispatch center that we're dealing with that could possibly go down?
Absolutely. The phone system actually will affect the dispatch center.
Well, that's what I was asking.
Why is the phone system hooked into the dispatch center? I didn't think that was supposed to be set up that way.
The dispatch center has a separate PRI that comes into the phone system, but they both tie into the
This
same
phone
phones.
system we're talking about that's blinking, is this the one blinking red?
Yes.
This can affect our dispatch center.
Yes, if the main card goes down, the dispatch center will go down as well. But it is on a separate PRI that we have that we can transfer over in case of emergencies. So we could have phones restored back in about 5 minutes, but that would be to a cell phone or some, another location wherever we could transfer the lines to.
So this, to me, is critical.
Yeah, that is critical.
Yeah, it's always nice to get an explanation. When you see $80,000 for phones, I need an explanation. And
The
that's-
fact that it's hooked
fine.
into the dispatch, I think,
Yeah.
I guess that makes it a little bit more.
Once again, council, any other questions or comments on this item before you?
Well, I do believe this item was tabled.
Right.
It was for the explanations. On my part, I asked for a
Wow.
tabling, and I've received my explanations. I appreciate
The
it.
only other item on the ordinance that wasn't addressed was the computer situation, and that's basically for the senior center, just so everyone's aware.
Well, that's old.
They're in desperate
very
need
old.
of an update over there.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dice.
Okay. An ordinance to provide for an amendment of the 2013 general fund budget.
Once again, Lynette, if you'll kindly put out some information for our listening audience as well
As we discussed last month, this was basically just the police hiring costs that we're not funded for. We're transferring money from the assistant chief salary to that, and from detectives' overtime to that. We originally had that in hiring. But once we did the cost analysis, found out that we're actually in the negative with the hiring, so we're now taking it from the detectives' overtime. So that was a change from last month.
Questions or comments?
I was also in favor of tabling that for an explanation, which Lynette sent me, and I didn't realize that the year-to-date grosses were their payouts
Exactly.
that were subtracted, and they're substantial, so that's why we're a little low on the,
Correct.
all right, for this year.
Any other questions or comments, council? Mr. Dice.
Okay, next is an ordinance amending ordinance 2558, 2482, and 1833, and incorporating ordinances number 2097 and 2226 regarding the rules governing the functions of council of the municipality of Monroeville and committees thereof.
I'd love to hear your explanation, Lois.
No, I think it's pretty clear here that we already have the latest of that ordinance. This, well, I guess if you want to refer back to what gives us the right to do this, then you refer to the Home Rule Charter, Section 408, so it's Article 4, and citizens' right to be heard. Citizens' council, can adopt reasonable rules and regulations governing the conduct of council members and the public during participation in the meetings. That's pretty much it, because it stays intact. What it does do is clarify, as I had explained last month to you, that citizens and council members will be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free of slander, threats of violence, or the use of council as a forum for politics. And each member of council shall cooperate with the chair in preserving order and decorum. Any person, and that was under A, under B is any person who shall disturb the peace of the council, make impertinent or slanderous remarks, or conduct herself in a boisterous manner while addressing the council shall be forthwith barred by the presiding officer from further audience before the council, except that if the speaker shall submit to proper order under these rules, permission for he or she to continue may be granted by a majority vote of the council. So I see that as being a very fair thing, and the overall goal is to return to peaceably run meetings that are fair. And council has that responsibility. And of course, Mayor, you preside over that responsibility. So that's really it. There wasn't much in wording to that, but I wanted to clarify it.
Thank you for telling me my duties.
Well,
Mr.
I don't
Dice.
think I need to tell you your duties.
Okay, next is an ordinance to provide for an amendment of the 2011-2013 capital improvement budget.
Any questions or comments?
Yes, I definitely have questions on this one. Sorry about this, guy. Now, this is transfers for an animal control vehicle?
Yes, it's become apparent that our animal control vehicle is on its last leg. So what we've done, Dom and Mike went through, our superintendent of public works and our foreman. There was funding left from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the first 6 line items on all the items, the Packer, the pickup truck, the walk behind.
Right, I can understand that. When I called Mike to ask him in regards to this, because I seen that he sponsored the bill, he actually informed me he did not sponsor this.
Oh,
So that's what I was informed.
well, him and Dom actually brought the transfer list over of what they wanted to do.
He explained to me he did not sponsor this ordinance.
He doesn't need it? He doesn't
Came
agree
from
with
Dom
this?
LaGorga.
Here, yeah, Susan has a memo,
Pardon me?
actually.
Came from Dom LaGorga,
It says sponsored by Mike Adams.
who is his supervisor.
Yeah, but Mike informed me that he did not, you can show me anything, that he did not sponsor this ordinance.
Okay.
Okay, and he's the superintendent.
It's
My
usually
next question is,
sponsored by the person who's the department head, and he is
Okay.
Dom's department head.
okay, but clarifying, $35,000 that we're going to take towards this truck that's running, I understand it has high miles on it. We just redid the body on it, from what I understand, last year. So, cosmetically, it's in good shape. It's running, it's not breaking down. We're taking $35,000 from this multi-million-dollar building that's been leaking windows, and I'm sick and tired of going downstairs, and you look in the police department, and all the ceiling tiles are going to crap. And this has been going on for years. And then when I was here, I was told that there was going to be some, people were talking about lawsuits over the mold that's produced downstairs. I'm very adamant that we keep this $35,000.
And actually, Mr. Duncan, I agree with you. The windows has been on our staff meeting agenda now for probably over a year. We have had numerous contractors out. They've been spraying the windows, trying to find the leaks. And when the truck issue came up, we actually talked with Mike and Dom about this, and we said that we could add the window situation, being that Mike had indicated nothing would be happening this year with the windows. We could add it to 2014's capital budget and get the truck now, being that was in,
It's also my understanding that the truck's in the capital 14 budget. And what makes us all think that we're going to have a capital improvement budget in 2014? I mean,
The home rule charter?
if we're $6.5 million
rules?
short of our budget, we're still going to be mandated to have a capital improvements? 2013 is the end of our capital improvements. We'll be going for another, 3 or 5 year capital improvement thing?
We are preparing a 5-year plan. yes.
5-year plan? How can we prepare a plan when we're $6.5 million in the hole?
That'll be
That
something the
amazes
council
me. So
will need.
That was
everybody's
the
saying
question, that was the question
2014.
last time as we went into the 3-year.
Well, I wasn't part of that. I am part of this one.
Actually, you were department head during that.
Yes, I was. But I had no control over budgets and, no control over the capital improvements.
Well, perhaps before we spend any money, taxpayers' dollars, perhaps we should see what our 2014 budget turns out to be, and also our 2013 budget. There's some issues we have to deal with currently. Certainly, if there's a lot of miles on this truck, and certainly the truck is imperative to animal control. Yes, it may be a reasonable expenditure, but I also think it's reasonable to perhaps maybe delay this for a couple months until we actually see where the budget is for 2014.
Those
before
are
spending.
two different budgets, though. You have a capital budget that is funded by taxpayers with, through a bond issue.
I understand.
And then you have the budget as prepared for each fiscal year.
But we don't know what services are being provided next year in our 2014 budget.
We didn't last time.
Right, but they weren't, I don't believe we're $6 million short.
Is this money from the bond refunding?
Not this one.
No.
None of this is?
This is from the 2011, 2013 capital. So this is just a reallocation of money that's in that.
Okay, and what about the earlier money?
The
Is any
earlier
of
money
it?
is from a 2008, 2010 bond issue that's left over that has to be reallocated to capital.
Because it has to be
improvement.
spent.
No, it does not have to be
It
spent.
has to be reallocated to
Reallocated.
capital improvements.
I guess what I'm saying
Right,
is,
we
why
relocated.
are we looking to spend when we're in such a deficit? You know, replace an animal control vehicle.
Does
We
he
have
really need that
windows
truck? I
that
don't-
are leaking.
I don't even know anything about the guy.
It's running. Is it running?
I mean, does he need
It's
a truck?
running, yes.
Is it just because he wants a new truck, because it's got 130,000 miles on it, or is
You'd
it?
have to ask his supervisor who came
I
over
will,
with the
I
memo.
will
and
do. I didn't
presented it.
realize it.
Who asked for the truck?
The, from my understanding, it is the employee.
Correct.
And he is the one that obviously deals with the truck on a daily basis. He certainly knows the department, and he's the one I think would probably answer those
That's who
questions
asked for the
best.
truck, Sue. I understand this.
But, I mean, I think as far as spending any money,
Asked to do this
Oh,
from our manager.
we should really be exploring, or waiting till everything shakes out. We did recently, as far as vehicles, we did spend a fair amount of money on a police transport van for the police department. I don't have the exact figure, but it was probably $80,000 to transport multiple prisoners at a time, which I don't know how often we use that van, so I think we should really just wait and wait on our spending, wait till we get a budget for 2014. I don't believe there's a rush for this. If this animal control truck were to, break down tomorrow, we have Tuesday to approve the new truck.
Nick, are you aware of what is, I mean, I'd just like to read this, and I'd like some clarification on this, if you don't mind, because it doesn't sound like, it sounds like it says currently we are in great need, and this is from Don McGorgo, the senior foreman. It says our current vehicle is a 2003, so it's, it's 10 years old with 132,000 miles on it and badly rusting. Are you aware of this?
The body issues were taken care of last year. I don't
So
know why.
do they recommend, do they think that we're in great need or we're not?
Well, council didn't get that memo until
Yeah, I
today.
didn't receive the
so you're-
memo.
You're reading it now.
Well, I
And
mean-
Dom is a foreman.
Right.
He's not the superintendent.
Right, and the superintendent directed his foreman to address that to me.
Well, we can sit up here and debate. I was.
I think somebody has our communications on.
He was
fixed.
not.
We just
I mean,
need to
I'd
get
just
to
like
the
to
bottom
know
of it.
if this truck's going to fall apart or it's not, because it's too late when it does, and we have raccoons biting in parks. I'm sorry, it happens. There's groundhogs in my yard. They're when it gets hot out, they look for water.
I
We've
mean-
had animals
Maybe we
everywhere.
could have
It's too late
the-
when it breaks. Is it
We could
getting
have
ready to
the
break or not?
animal control, the animal controller, he could drive the brand-new police van and capture animals in it.
There you go.
Any
I like that.
vehicle we have in our supply could break down at any given time.
Well-
If the animal control vehicle would break down, we could give them a pickup truck with a cage in the back to put the
We either
raccoon
take
in.
their recommendations or we don't. This is not,
All
we're
I'm
not
saying
making this
is-
up, can we have the professionals who?
I'd like to get these windows done in this building. I think priority should be first. The money was allocated for these windows. It should be spent on a multi-million-dollar building before we lose it or have lawsuits of.
So
Particularly if there's black mold.
the windows
Black
in
mold.
here, it says Public Works windows. These are for the municipal building. Is that incorrect on here?
Yeah, that is incorrect. It
It's
should say
incorrect. So
municipal.
they're not, so it's not Public Works windows, it's municipal building windows.
Exactly.
Well, if we could get a copy, if all of council get a copy of the memo that Dom
Certainly.
wrote up, that'd be
Put it in
great,
your
because that would help. That'd be very helpful to help
And just to.
get all the information before. we make
And I've
decisions.
got the home rule charter in front of me on the capital improvement program. It is not mandated. It just gives you an outline on what the manager should prepare for council and obviously allow for public input, public hearings. It is not a mandate, and I agree with Steve. There's no guarantee that there'll be a capital improvement program for next year or any. That's up to the new council members coming in. And I would like to think that, and I agree with one other statement that Nick made. We have basically a $400,000 to almost $600,000 deficit for this year alone. I talked to our tax collector, and the rebates, because of all the settlements down at the county, is now up to $450,000. Now, was anything also addressed on the $122,000 that we were going to use, take off OPEB? Was that addressed yet? Because that's illegal. Apparently, we cannot do that.
No, you
So,
can't.
if you add that, 450 plus the 122, you're almost at $600,000 in a hole. If we don't do something now, we won't be able to pay payroll and bills sometime in the next month or so, month or two. 3, I don't know where it's going to be, but we won't have enough money to pay our bills.
But please keep in mind that the money that was allocated for capital improvement projects has to stay within capital improvement
And
projects.
I'm well aware of
It cannot
that.
be transferred
But
out
there
of
may
our
be
general
other
operating
projects
budget.
that we may have to do. It's more prudent, I think, to sit tight. As Steve said, we have such huge deficits. We don't know what other issues that we're going to have. And if that capital improvement can do something else better right now, if that truck is running,
Mayor, you do realize we're talking about 2 different budgets?
I am absolutely aware of what I'm saying. The capital improvement has nothing to do with, you're right, but if they can move it around to do this truck, maybe it's something else, we can do something else that we might need. Maybe the phone system, maybe the computer system, maybe something else that we can transfer that money around.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Well, no, you don't know, but that's the process. One of the things that is first in that process is what's been going on, which I understand culminated in maybe yesterday, the day before, where each department, and that is where you're looking at capital outlay, looks at where those priorities are.
Yeah,
and that's where that begins. And so it is true, we need to hear from them, because they best know that prioritization. But to say that you may not have a capital project, well,
Well,
I
again,
can't.
that's up to the
I can't
new
speak.
council.
I can't speak anything beyond the end of this year, but I'm just
That is
saying that
correct.
those things were allocated for those categories, and if you're going to roll to a later
They
time,
were not allocated for a new
well, each
animal
part of the
control
capital improvement plan has a section relevant to that department. You'll agree.
You know, one question I have, we just purchased a brand-new paddy wagon or police van. If we knew this truck was in trouble, why didn't we purchase that before? I mean, we have vehicles to transfer prisoners. I'm not trying to beat up our police department at all. I support them, and they all know that 110%. But if this was such a priority, why didn't we buy this first?
At any given time, we have 12 police cars
I mean,
parked out
you know,
there as transport vehicles.
Well, let me just clarify, going back to the police van, Councilman Griesbach, you had stated that the police van was $60,000 to $70,000. The police van was $40,000. And to buy an Explorer, which was allocated for this year, was $39,120. So that van only cost us approximately $800 more, and it has already saved us many hours of overtime because we can transport many prisoners down to Allegheny County.
Yeah, but at the same
versus
time,
that.
I've also talked to where they haven't used it, and they've sent 2 different cars down on the same shift because I don't remember all the issues. It's not used every time to transport. The bottom line is, I think personally, the SUVs are way more appropriate, just for the, and I know they burn more gas, they cost more, but if you look at our officers that are complaining about the new cars we have, the bigger guys have a hard time getting in there because their equipment sticks or can't get in. You know, again, you can transport prisoners in SUVs much better than the newer vehicles. They're too small.
Well, the first time
We're
one
not
of the
spending our money
prisoners-
wisely.
The first time one of our prisoners kicks out the door in an Explorer and the windows, then you will see an added cost of thousands of dollars to replace that, and the van would have already paid for itself.
Oh, we can look at a bunch of scenarios.
Yeah, you can
now.
always throw that out
Well,
there.
it's-
Again,
it has
the
occurred.
priorities are not being looked at as far
It
as I'm
definitely
concerned.
has occurred.
Mayor, let me
Yes.
just ask one question here.
Sure.
And that is, on the on the departmental stuff, day-to-day, who do you think might have a better handle of what their department heads are doing with costs, with equipment?
I
Would
would
that
hope
be
our-
you, would that be you, or would that be a
Well,
management?
you can say what you want.
No, I'm
I am
asking a question.
I just told you the department heads, but I'm also the mayor of this town, and I'm also have the responsibility of bringing up questions.
Yeah,
When
that's true.
residents ask me to print it out on TV, I put it out
Okay,
there.
and for
these
the
are
sake.
things they're asking me.
For the sake of not talking over each other, if you're asking what, you don't know all the details, that's really a good way to get the details is to find out from the management over those, how that's being utilized in each department, so that you could get that question answered. You said you don't have the details. That, I think, would be a good idea as to how to get those details, is to actually find out what the functions
You
are
misunderstood what I said on the
within
details.
each department.
The details I was referring to, and I don't want to belabor this anymore, if we knew that this truck, animal control truck, was in that kind of condition, before we purchased another vehicle for anybody, that should have been done. Now, that just didn't
The
happen
money for the van was
yesterday.
allocated to the police department, Mayor, not to Public Works.
But do we not do budget transfers?
But this van and the
Do we not
Explorers
do
were...
we do budget transfers?
But this was placed in the police department general operating fund.
Do we not do budget transfers? Do we?
Well, I felt the van was necessary for my police department.
And how do you,
Well, I
and how
think
do you
that
understand
We're supposed to
that?
represent everybody, all the.
How would you
I absolutely
understand?
agree. That's why I'm here tonight saying that we need an animal control truck.
And what I would like is just, once again, there was the memo from Mr. LaGorga, sorry. You know, if council could have all that information prior to making these decisions, that'd be the most reasonable thing. I mean, it's maybe one of the things maybe we're missing here is that, you know, if we had a breakdown of, okay, the supervisor said this is what's going on, or if we knew that, okay, this costs this much money, but it burns this much fuel. If we could have these explanations before we make decisions, instead of getting this information after the fact or at the last minute. So that's one of the issues
That's
I'm
why we
having.
have work sessions, so we discuss it and we
Yeah.
get the information out.
And
I'm
guess
glad
what?
to
Certainly
give you
coming up right now.
Don't you also
anything
have
that you
weekly
would
staff
like.
meetings where you discuss what's needed? And we're supposed to work, the department heads are supposed to work with the manager's supposed to present to us.
The manager should contact us. She
And
has
that's
the
what,
weekly
that's what I just said.
department meeting.
That's what I just said.
Well, I've gotten no
Well, that's,
contact.
but
Well, I
we're
didn't
not
know that
supposed
I
to go
needed
to
to
the
contact everyone to
department.
purchase a vehicle. That's why I have it on the
Well, when you're
agenda to
transferring the
transfer.
funds, you're bringing it to council. I'm not going to sit here and debate, guys.
Right.
Let's just.
No,
move
it's
on.
not a debate. Let's just say this, and guess what's been going on? Guess what the first order of business, I believe, has been going on, and that would be the capital budget. And that would be each department head taking their time, doing what they feel are their resources with what they need, and that is the exact information Dr. Griesbach just asked for, and guess what? That's what's been going on, and that's what was reported, I believe. That's
Hey.
going to now be shared with us, but that only got through, how many days ago? Yesterday.
Lois, when you're doing a capital improvements budget, you're doing it 5 years down the line.
Well, we've historically done 3, but yes, this is the first time
How do
5.
we know financially how we stand 5 years from now? Obviously, we didn't know what we're going through next year.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's the
I
whole rule's asking
personally-
for 5 years, which
I
historically is only
personally am
done
going
3.
to ask for at Tuesday's meeting that we cancel, we postpone all hiring and any expenditures until we find out where the heck we're going to be.
That's called
for the
the
next
budget
4 months.
process.
The budget process?
Yeah, we need to find out what it's costing, what personnel are part and parcel to that, and that's what we're trying to go through here.
If we need to find $500,000 between now and January to keep payroll on everyone, how can we be hiring more officers and buying anything?
The amount
Till we
of,
find out, discuss through a budget process, exactly like you're saying, find out where that money's going to come from before we hire or buy anything.
And that's the process
Additional.
that I think everybody here is asking that we go through, and I'm one of them.
I'll address part of that in my report, Steve. I do have
That's
some
all I
comments
have.
on that. And anything else on this issue before you, council? Thank you, Mr. Dice. We'll move over to reports of our officials, and Lynette will put you up. You have a couple
Actually, I'm
issues.
going to save all mine, other than the budget calendars attached. I'm going to save my other items till Tuesday night.
Okay. Clarence? Steve?
I have nothing else.
Diane?
I gave the update from the Public Safety Committee, so now I would like to go over through the CBB, the upcoming events at the Monroeville Convention Center. This Friday through Sunday, we have the Monroeville Arts Council, and admission is free. The Showmasters Gun Show is coming Saturday, August 17th and 18th. Admission is $9 for adults, children under 12 are free. The Original Sewing and Quilt Expo will be August 22nd through 24th. $8 online and $10 at the door. Children under 12 are free. Then Pyoga is coming. I always wonder what that stood for. And it's Pennsylvania Independent Oil and Gas Association will be here August 27th and 28th. It's a trade show, but if somebody wants to walk the floor, it would be $25 at the door, and it's good for both days. And upcoming in September, believe it or not, is Willie's Ski Sail Expo, August 31st, September 1st and 2nd, and admission is free. That's all I have. Thank you.
JJ?
You know, I have a lot of things I'd like to say. I really do, but at the advice of our solicitor, reluctantly, I'm just going to sit here and keep my mouth shut.
Lois?
Yes, Mayor. I'm looking for some cutoff dates here because I have the senior center calendar in front of me. Now, the next one's coming out pretty soon, but we are still in the July-August newsletter of the Monroeville Senior Citizen Center. And there are some monthly programs that, of course, bingo we already had on the 3rd. And there's always a $500 jackpot take all, but we have already had that on Saturday the 3rd. A couple of other things that are coming up this month. In the month of August, you have the hot dog roast, and there are cutoff dates to call the senior council. The center's number is 412-856-7825 to get the cutoff date for getting your tickets to the hot dog roast. It's going to be held Tuesday, this coming 13th at 12 noon. And the other event coming up is the monthly luncheon that is always held on a Monday. In this time, it is Monday, August 26th. Also, please be assured that you've gotten your tickets. They always have great hot lunches there. Senior luncheon is at 12 noon on that Monday. Just fantastic things at the Senior Center that are continually going on for Total Fitness. Fitness Center has been growing. The Silver Sneakers program has been growing. And each year, as I said, at the senior council meetings, we take a look at some of this revenue coming in from those programs, and it truly is establishing itself. We just encourage everyone to take interest and call the senior center and visit, take a tour. 50 years or older, you're eligible, if you live in Monroeville, to be a member. If you're 65 years or older, you are eligible to go and use state-of-the-art workout equipment in their fitness room without paying a penny. But if you're not 65 yet, you pay a fairly decent fee, about $45 every 3 months. And that's senior news. I know Diane mentioned that the CVB was going to have the Monroeville Arts Council, but I wanted to just remind folks that this is that 24th annual art show. There's quite a bit to it. You and your guests are cordially invited to attend the Monroeville Arts Council Award Ceremony and Reception. And this starts Friday, August 9th, 7 p.m., and it's presented thanks to the generosity of Visit Monroeville and UPMC East. It is at the Monroeville Convention Center, as Mrs. Allison mentioned, and the art show has the opening night. August 9th through 11th is the entire show. Friday, August 9th, there will be award ceremonies. There will be members and artist guests. There will be specific events that have to do with canine companions on Friday, August 9th. Demonstration of dog skills that help the handicapped. Information will be presented on raising a puppy to become a companion dog. And this is a MAC outreach activity, a community service project, so all ages are welcome to attend. Saturday, the second day of the show, 10 a.m. is Norma Rally, and this is called Scratchboard. It's a drawing technique with a sharp tool for etching into china clay-coated black. Norma will also display her award-winning photography and artwork featuring nature and animals with specific focus on pet portraits. And that goes on through Sunday, the 11th. And at 12 noon, there will be Jones's Davis, life casting, sculpting, special effects. There will be entertainment. Ron D'Amico, I just listened to him recently, and singing standards, swing, and ballads. And then, of course, the entertainment from 4 to 5 p.m. on that Sunday. And they will offer a tribute to Frank Sinatra. So come be a member of the Monroeville Arts Council. It's another great activity in the summer. And finally, I just want to mention that the garden in back of the library that is specific for raising food for the food pantries that are in our area is, full of zucchini, yellow peppers, carrots, basil tops, green beans, And there's about 82-plus pounds of produce so far. There have been about 395 vegetables that have been dispersed out so far to the 4 food banks in the Monroeville area. This, like many gardens right now, because of the conditions, we're suffering some blight. And so the Warriors this weekend will probably be trying to save the tomatoes. I don't know what that's going to do for the yield, but we're still working pretty hard with that garden, and it's beautiful to look at. So I think everybody might be having the same problem with this weather, so we're no different. And that's all I have.
Nick?
Yeah, so the Recreation and Parks Department, the Summer Concert Series, which is sponsored by UPMC East and presented by the municipality of Monroeville, continues this weekend with actually an outdoor Shakespeare play at the Tall Trees Amphitheater at the Monroeville Community Park off of Tilbrook Road. Henry V will be presented by Poor York's Players. That is tomorrow, Friday, August 9th through the 11th, all weekend, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Hopefully have some nice weather for that. Bring a blanket, enjoy the show. But we thank UPMC East and the municipality for putting this program on. And in sadness, speaking of the Monroeville Senior Center, reporting that we lost a member of our extended municipal family, Richard Wisemore, who is the husband of Lida Wisemore, who is the secretary of the Monroeville Senior Center. But furthermore with Richard is that he for many years served on the Monroeville Council of Senior Citizens Board for many, many years. He also, for years daily, he volunteered at the front desk at the Monroeville Senior Center as a greeter and working the front desk. And he also volunteered for years in the Monroeville tax office. So he spent a lot of time and gave a lot of public service to our municipality. And furthermore, in his younger years, he was very active with Shriners and their children's hospital. And he will be missed. And Mr. Mayor, that is all I have for this evening.
Thank you. Bern?
A couple of things that I have thunder's been taken, but we have the Max and Irma's flyers here for anybody that's here that you want to get those. We do have that coming up on August 26th for the library, and the book blast is coming up as well in September 15th. The other thing that the library is celebrating is its 50th year next year. And so anybody that has things from the last 50 years that they think would be appropriate, reach out to the library and talk to them about things that you might want to include in some of the things that have happened over the last 50 years that would be relevant from a historical standpoint. That's it for the library. In January, I implored the council to make one of two decisions: either cut costs or do the right thing and raise the millage by something like 4 to 6 mil because of the expenses that we had this year and the ones that are upcoming. We chose instead to take a much easier route and simply use the smallest amount of increase that the municipal manager at the time had calculated that we would need. Unfortunately, that number is short. Unfortunately, we leave next year's council with a bigger problem. And we have a bigger problem this year. We need to cut costs. I've been saying that for 4 years, and we've done nothing to do it. Our costs continue to go up. And we have places we can cut costs. We have big places we can cut costs. They're not popular. But it can be done if we have the fortitude. I've suggested over the last 4 years that we do things like consider privatizing certain aspects of things. There are certain things, and Mr. Mayor, you're absolutely right. It's not an easy process, and it's not necessarily prudent to simply cut over the refuse, and I never proposed that. But there are things that we might be able to better service the community by outsourcing. I suggest that we need to do more to encourage business. And here we are, we've raised taxes. Out of 132 municipalities, we're the only ones that raised our millage this year. Every single other municipality and governmental agency in Allegheny County, including the Gateway School District, reduced theirs. They don't have that luxury probably isn't going to exist this year. You're probably going to get a double whammy, probably a fairly large one. But we should have been doing this all along, cutting costs, finding new ways to do things. So here we are, and it's a big challenge. And it's not going away because one of the big expenses is the OPEB expenses, and eventually those things have to get funded. They may not need to get funded at $2 million. They may need to get funded at $2 million. They may need to get funded at $4 million. I don't know. I haven't looked at the most recent report. But the point is, eventually, we will have to pay those other post-employment benefits. So here we are. We're finishing off this period, and a new council, unfortunately, is going to be faced with bigger problems and bigger issues than have been here for the last 4 to 6 years. So that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, folks, I promise I'll try to address a couple of the issues I have as quickly as possible. One of the issues that came before me is some of the residents had asked me about my powers and duties as mayor. And I've just pulled out real quickly the Home Rule Charter. It said the mayor shall be recognized as the leader of the municipal government and shall be the presiding officer for council. The mayor shall have a voice in all matters before council and shall have authority and perform such duties as assigned under this charter. And it goes on to say a few other things. If you actually look at the way this is set up, obviously, it is a manager-run government, if you will. The manager has the power to appoint, suspend, remove all municipal employees, except as otherwise provided by law or this charter, and any report such action at the next business meeting of council. So if you're wondering why I am not able to do more, as some of you have suggested, is that first off, a couple of things. I don't have a vote up here. That is certainly your 7 voting members of council. Secondly, this is not a council that can actually even they can obviously talk to the manager, but the manager can pretty much manage, appoint, suspend, promote, do whatever he or she chooses. I would ask that you all as residents, I want you to consider this for next year, or whenever we can do it as expeditiously as we can, that we need to change some of the Home Rule Charter. This position of the manager is very powerful. It is not answerable to any resident. We as elected officials, on the other hand, have to answer to all of you every 4 years. I'm not saying that the management position needs to be changed dramatically, but some of that power needs to go back to this council, in my opinion. For the simple fact is, we do answer to you. If you don't like what any of us do, you vote us out. The manager, and it's been stated in past meetings, they pretty much can do as they choose. Not just from now, I'm talking about going back as many years as you can go. There's no answering to you as residents. We need to really think about that. And under the charter, I also have the right to put a committee together, which I'm going to talk about our ward initiative. But that's something that if you elect me again, after running the fall, I'll be asking for you as some residents to sit with me on a committee and take a look at that. I think that, again, any major decisions should be answerable to you, the public. We should not have a non-elected position having that kind of power. Maybe in the years ago that worked. This is the 21st century, and you've seen what's going on here over the last 6-8 months. It needs to change. Second thing I want to talk about is our ward initiative. Mr. Schufo and I have been working, more Mark, I certainly have been trying to help him on getting that ward initiative moving. For all of you who've put in your name to assist on that committee. We will get back to you, but this is taking a little bit more, Mark, than we realize. It's a lot bigger project, a lot more involved, and we're getting all the Ts and Is dotted and crossed. So before we actually sit down as a group, we'll have some better information. So be patient with us. I'll try to get that out there with Mark and I's help, or I should say Mark's help, as soon as we can to get that moving. I still think that's an appropriate venue for us to take a look at. If we don't take care of our residential areas, why would business want to move here? If we don't take care of our residential areas, all of our homes suffer in value. That's the last thing we want to do. If anything, we should be working to increase our values at our homes. Talking about budget meetings, I've requested a budget meeting on August 12th. Now, obviously, there was some discussion on some council members thought it was a waste of time, that not enough information was put together. We actually have two budget issues that we have to deal with. One's 2013, which is now, as some of you have already heard, we already have issues on that. To the tune of about $572,000 is the closest I can figure. It may be a little more, it may be a little less. But eventually, if we don't deal with this, we're going to have some issues. If anything, I wanted to, this August 12th meeting, for us to at least sit down as council and have it televised for you, the residents that wanted to be here, to have input also. This is, we have and Bern, you're right. Oh, he's gone. We have big issues here. And right now, we have to get through 2013. In addition, they're correct, there's at least a $6.5 million deficit that we're going to have to decide. Now, we're almost halfway through August. We've been, not just me, others on council, have been saying we need to sit down and have budget meetings. And to date, unless you all agree, let's start meeting on the 12th. The last email I sent to you, Lynette, are we going to have the meeting or not? And I guess that's what I need to ask the council members now. When I was on the email before I came, I see no further response.
You got my response.
Yeah, no.
No, you got my response about it being the process that's actually going on now. I reminded, there were three different things to look back in terms of the past three managers. And beginning with where you and I actually were part of this, because we both were on council in 2009, Marshall Bond introduced zero-based budgeting, and that was a July-August seminar that prepared departmental managers to learn that budget process, and therefore, after that, to be presenting what Marshall Bond had determined was going to be zero-based budgeting. He announced the budget September 22nd. He had a calendar that was part of his report, and et cetera, et cetera. So now we go, and we back it up a month in anticipation of trying to be proactive per your request.
Well,
it was a month
that's what we're looking at.
Well, wait a while.
That's what we're
This
looking
wasn't
at, not
just
our-
my request. Let me just finish it, since this is
We're
my
looking at the
report.
process.
The bottom line is, we should have been probably meeting in June, because this is that serious of a problem.
Then you would
For
have
both
that
2013 and 24. At least we could get ideas out there. Right now, Susan, I'm sure, could provide us with what we're spending, and then obviously we could have brought our tax collector in. We could do things, even though we may not have exact numbers. Right now, we're just going to be putting along into September with two budget issues, two budget serious issues that we have to deal with. Normally, and it's the first time it's in my 5 years, going on 6 years, that we've ever had two major budget issues from two different years. In other words, the current year going into the following year as well. So, yeah, I was trying to push the issue of trying to meet earlier. Some of my other colleagues up here as well. You all decide. If you want to meet August 12th, fine. If you don't, let me know on email. Let Lynette know on email. I'm available. I think we should start. That's just my opinion.
I think we've already started, and that's what we're gathering from the department heads, which is part of that process.
This has
is the
nothing to
correct
do,
information.
Lois, this has nothing to do with what, we're going to have to make some adjustments for right now, the operating budget now. The department heads can make suggestions, and they should have been on it already. This just didn't happen yesterday. This has been a couple of months that we knew about the original 400,000. We also knew that the 122,000 that we were going to take from OPEB, almost March maybe we knew about that we couldn't do it?
No, actually,
April?
when Manager Silka had suggested that in his budget message last year, he didn't realize, and it was brought up, and I believe I was part of bringing that up, to our solicitor to find that that should never have been considered. That was part of an irrevocable trust that was used and should be segregated. So that never should have been in last budget
But again,
message.
it was, and we never
should have been
addressed it.
considered.
Now,
Okay,
again.
that's one of the reasons why
Lois,
you
may I finish
gather
my
information, and you gather information so that you can present accurate figures
Okay, may I finish my report?
to answer the question.
Okay, I didn't ask you a question.
Well, I thought you were.
I did not ask you, I did not say, Lois, I don't even want to get into that. At any rate, though, my other thing is that Mr. Duncan brought up some good points. I think this council, and Lynette, I'm going to ask you point blank, do you support stopping all hiring as of right now? We don't know where we're going to be at. Can you support that?
Well, the only hiring that we're doing right now is the replacement of our police officer, so if council wants to authorize overtime for the other officers, then I'm all in favor of that, but I think that would kind of be counterproductive.
I'd like to see that more. How many officers are we bringing back? I mean, we just hired officers. How many do we actually have retired? We'll talk about this at a budget meeting. We do not need to be hiring anymore, spending more money, unless we're just paying employee salaries or paying our recurring bills. We are in trouble. Byrne, brings out a point that we've been spending money foolishly for the last 4 to 6 years. This is the first year that you, Mr. Erb, did not vote for the budget. You voted for the last 3, no matter what they did. You supported it.
2.
3. This is your 4th year, sir.
I haven't voted on the 4th budget yet. I voted for 2 budgets, I voted against one.
Okay, I'll take that. You are correct. But bottom line is, you voted for other budgets. This is your first one for this year that you didn't agree with. Bottom line is, we have a money problem, and nobody disagrees with that. We just need to stop the spending completely, other than our bills, like our gas bill and et cetera, and pay our employees. As far as hiring goes, and let's talk about hiring. Dispatch center, we've been spending money on overtime like crazy, and I'm hearing, Lynette, you have applications on your desk that you haven't even addressed. Now, there have been
I don't know where
part-time
you're
people.
hearing that from, Mr. Mayor, because we interviewed and they are actually being hired.
Yeah, well, that's only after all the controversy over the last couple of weeks.
Well, I don't think there's been any controversy.
Okay, well, I don't want to get into that.
controversy right
We'll
here.
talk about that
There's
in
the
the executive
controversy.
session,
That's it right
since
there.
there's employees' issues.
Right there.
And Lois, will you please?
No, this is controversial. I wish we'd wrap it up here. This
Lois,
is ranting and
just-
raving.
I am not, you know what, I'm just going to ignore you. But at any rate, though, the bottom line is, and you can change whatever you want, remember, you lost the election. Anything that you do can be changed by the new councils. Please don't forget that.
Was I supposed to have not and forgot? I mean,
Well, you apparently don't. You don't remember that very well.
What would that have to do with it, what you're talking about?
At any rate, though, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time. We do have issues. I want the budget process to start as fast as we can. I really think that we need to not spend any more money, end of story. And if I cross the line with some of you all, because I get a little upset with her always interrupting and wanting the decor, but she's the one that always creates the problems, I apologize. Bottom line is, we have issues, we need to deal with them, and I'm asking this council to do so. With that, a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you and good night.